Today, I'm honored to introduce you to Dr. Joey Munoz, a husband, father of two beautiful children, PhD in nutrition science, fitness coach, and founder of the Fit for Life Academy. Joey is incredibly passionate, talented, and has earned my utmost respect. He works tremendously hard to provide free, helpful, and encouraging content to help people lose fat, get stronger, build muscle, and improve their health. Joey Munoz, welcome to the podcast, brother.
Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
You and I are going to do something different than I've done on this podcast, because I do the interviews on Wednesdays, and then I do my own podcast with Tony on we record on Tuesday, but it comes out on Sundays. Tony and I start with a word of the day, and you said you were listening, and you wanted to do a word of the day.
Sure.
So it's up to you. Do you want to go first with the word of the day? Or you want me to go first?
I'll let you go first.
All right, I'll go first. So my word of the day, it's not just one word. It is a little bit of a phrase.
Okay.
It's ani omed al, which is you can use it when you're saying like I'm standing up for.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm using this as my word of the day or phrase of the day today because and for anyone who doesn't know, it's in Hebrew, ani omed al. My oldest daughter, she's so sweet. Like she's so kind and so sweet, and she's in school. And that's a whole mindfuck when your kid starts going to school and other kids and you don't have control anymore. Yeah. And she's only 3.5. So there's a lot more time that God willing will happen. But she's very passive. And so if a kid like takes her toy that she's playing with, like she's not going to be like, hey, I don't like that. Hey, like please give that back. She'll just like let them be and she'll go do her own thing. Yeah. And it's good, like pick your own battles, but also I want her to be able to stand up for herself. So my wife and I, we've been teaching her, hey, if a kid does this, like you can say, hey, I don't like that. I would like you to give that back, please, whatever it is. And so she came home the other day and she was like, hey, this girl took my toy when I was playing with it. And I said, hey, I don't like that. And then she gave it back. And I told my daughter, I was like, I'm so glad that you stood up for yourself. And she looks at me and she was like, I didn't. I was sitting down. And I had to pause for a second. And then I tried to explain, no, it doesn't mean that you're actually standing. It was actually very difficult for me to try and navigate that. But I was like, all right, I'm going to use this as a word of the day.
That's adorable.
So, ani omed al, like I'm standing up for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it, bro. What's your word of the day?
No, that's great. My word for the day is resiliency. And I think it's something we'll talk about probably because I think it's something that is important, obviously, for all different aspects of your life. I think it's really important for health and fitness for people that struggle with it. But the reason why I was thinking about this word is because I think we all go through moments in life that are incredibly difficult and some moments more difficult than others. And I'm really a big believer that you really have two options. Either be sad about it and do nothing about it or be resilient and get through it. Mm-hmm. And right now, not to make people feel sorry for me, but there's a lot of stuff going on in my life that feels pretty difficult. But what I've realized is every time I'm in a situation that feels really difficult, when I get through it, I feel stronger. I feel more capable. I feel proud of myself. And so there's a couple things going on at the moment. You and I talked about a couple of them. I was talking about some mental health issues related to people in my family. 2 weeks ago, my aunt actually unfortunately passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry, dude.
My mom's sister, and she had been struggling with schizophrenia for about 2 decades. So dealing with a little bit of the emotional repercussions from that situation, we were talking about the fact that I don't really have the best relationship with my mom at all. Despite me really wanting to have a great relationship with her, she's somebody who's difficult to have a good relationship with. But we haven't talked in about 1.5 years. And sometimes when you ignore things and just don't talk to somebody, it's almost easier than when you try to start rekindling a relationship.
Yeah.
So I had actually gone down to Miami to visit my aunt when she was in the hospital. And I decided not to pass by my mom's house, which is something I regret a little bit. But in my heart, I just didn't want to deal with that when I was dealing with the other situation as well. But I think because she lost her sister, she's starting to realize that time is short. And so she reached out to me and she wants to hang out and see the kids. And that comes with a whole bunch of different issues as well when it comes to keeping certain boundaries in place. You and I were talking about this a little bit earlier, but my wife has been struggling with some anxiety related stuff recently. And then the latest issue, business wise, We're having our first legal issues with business.
No.
So you mentioned I'm the owner of Fit for Life Academy. It might not be Fit for Life Academy for much longer because
Really?
somebody filed some trademark infringements on us. They own the name Fit for Life, not the name Fit for Life Academy. Again, part of it is my fault for not digging into this before I started with business. But I was like, I like this name. I'm going to run my business under this. So for those of you guys listening, if any of our clients are listening, we might have to change the name, but it's all good. But despite all that, it feels stressful for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I tend to try to focus on the positives. For example, like being here, being on this podcast is super cool. I see the legal issues. I was like, oh, okay, we've had some growth in our business to the point where like people are noticing us now, and now we're having some legal issues. And I'm seeing the whole situation with my mom as, even though it feels stressful, as really as an opportunity to try to rekindle our relationship, which I really want to do. And then hopefully we get through this stronger and better.
Man, well, thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry about the passing of your aunt. I
appreciate
sucks.
it.
In Judaism, we say, Zichrona livracha, may her memory be a blessing. So thank you for sharing all that. And listen, I talk about it all the time, but resiliency is massively important, to say the least. And it's a skill. I think it's a skill to learn how to face things head on and to stay resilient and not just break. And I also think part of resiliency is sometimes you will break, but then picking up the pieces and keep going from there. So let's get into, just tell people who you are, like where you're from, what do you do? Just give people who don't know who you are a little bit more of an introduction to Joey.
Gotcha. So I am a doctor of nutrition, which means that I went to school for a very long time.
How long?
So I did my undergraduate for 4 years, did a master's for a year, and then another 4 years of my PhD, and then a year of a postdoctoral fellow. Postdoctoral fellowship is just like additional schooling in a different area of research that you want to do.
Okay.
So the way that I like to, because people sometimes are like, you're a doctor. And I'm like, not a medical doctor, a PhD. It's like, oh, well, what's the difference? A PhD is somebody who is trained to do research, essentially, right? The easy way that I like to explain it is when you go to school, you learn from textbooks. So you are consuming information. When you do a PhD, you are producing the information that's going to be in textbooks. So you are a producer of information, right? So that was what my training was. That said, though, the academic environment can be really political. And I think my perspective is a bit biased because the environment that I was in was incredibly political. And so I saw certain aspects of academia that I didn't really enjoy. And when you do a PhD, you're really trained to be a professor at a university. But I quickly realized I didn't want to go down that route. And at the end of the day, I've always been a bro. Like, I love the gym, I love training, and I love sharing that with others. I think that the gym and fitness in general has been such a positive influence in my life that I just love sharing that with other people. So before starting my master's, actually during my master's, I worked as a personal trainer. I had been training myself for years before that. And so I always wanted to figure out like how I could get back to that. And part of it was like, man, I've gone to school for so long. I have this degree. I'm not going to use it now. I'm going to go back to working with people. And it was actually my wife at the time who was like, what do you have to lose? She's like, try it for a year. If it doesn't work, you can just go back to what you were doing before. And I've always had a fairly entrepreneurial spirit too. So in middle school, I was the kid selling Airheads to all the other kids. Funny story, actually, a side tangent here. I would ask my mom to go to Costco to buy me Airheads.
No way.
Because I wanted to sell them in school. And she's like, no, you need to pay attention in school. And my aunt, her sister, not the one who passed, another sister, has always been an entrepreneur. So I would go to her and be like, hey, Aleida, my mom said can't sell Airheads, but I really want them. And so I would give her $15 or whatever. She would buy me the box of Airheads. I would turn it into $40 at school. And I mean, that didn't last too long because eventually my mom found out. But I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit, and I wanted to figure out how I could marry my education with my love for my passion for fitness, with the whole entrepreneurial thing. And I started in this field because, well, professionally after my PhD, I was a big fan of Layne Norton. And I was listening to one of his old podcasts, and Layne has podcasts where they're very educational or they're very inspirational. And if anybody listening knows Layne gets fired up when he's inspirational.
Yes.
And so he had a podcast episode, God, this must have been like about 8 years ago at the very least. And Layne, if you listen to this, this is where it all started. I was driving down home with my wife, my girlfriend at the time, she was asleep. We were on a road trip down to Miami, and I'm listening to Lane's podcast, and he's like, if you want something, go for it. Don't be afraid. Ask for help. Like, put yourself out there. I'm like, all right. Can I curse on this podcast? I think I can.
Dude,
like, I was like, all right, fuck it. I'm going to find this guy's email. I'm going to reach out. And that's how I met Lane. He gave me an opportunity to start writing for his website. And then when I finished my PhD, he offered me a position to coach with his company, which is how I got started with this whole online coaching thing, social media. Started posting probably back in like 2020, 2021. And then 2.5 years ago, decided to leave Lane's company. Super grateful for all the opportunities he's given me and start my own thing. But if I'm going to take this back, like all the way back, because I like sharing a little bit about my origin story, because I feel like oftentimes, Jordan, when somebody sees somebody like yourself or myself who has a certain degree of success, is really passionate about fitness, there's a disconnect in terms of relatability.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
And I always tell myself, and I've made content about this, like if you see where I started on paper, like I almost am in somewhat of disbelief of the things that I've been able to accomplish, not just professionally, but when it comes to relationships, because I grew up in a broken household. My dad was in and out of my life the majority of my life. I have a pretty good relationship with my dad now, but he struggled with issues with alcoholism and drug abuse. And people struggle with different things.
Yeah.
Right. So I grew up in that sort of environment. I think my mom, my whole life, has struggled with mental health issues. And so what I saw growing up as a kid was not a healthy relationship by any means, right? A lot of emotional abuse, things that I would never want my kids to see. And I somehow have a very healthy relationship with my wife, a very loving relationship. And I think I do a pretty good job as a dad demonstrating the values that I want my kids to embody as well. I grew up pretty much failing every class in school. Straight up, dude, like D's and F's. Partially, I think I was undiagnosed dyslexic.
Okay.
So I mixed things up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So like red and green, I put green and red.
Mm.
And not a big deal as an adult, but when you're in kindergarten and first grade, those things are important. And then on top of that, I realized I always acted out like as class clown. I think partially because of all of the stuff that I dealt with at home, I kind of just acted that way in school. And I've always been very disorganized as well. So I would do my homework, stuff it in my book bag, go to school and be like, well, I can't find my homework. And somehow I have a PhD, right? So
at least you were doing your homework. That's good.
Yeah, quote unquote. Like my mom's very strict. So like I had to sit at the table and do my homework no matter how long it took. And then the third part of my story is that I was very overweight as a kid. I wasn't naturally in shape by any means. I struggled with my weight and body image for so many years, man. I remember, I always tell the story, I was either 11 or 12, right around that time. I went to the doctor for like a general checkup with my mom. And I remember the doctor whispering to my mom, but I overheard it, him telling her that I was like 2% body fat away from being obese, right? And so I needed to lose weight. And from there on is when my mom started putting me on all sorts of different diets, not with intentional like malice by any means. She didn't know any better, but it was like no carbs. I would just eat like a whole rotisserie chicken for dinner. And then exercise was used as a reward mechanism for the things that I wanted. And I struggled with that for years. I remember middle school wearing 2 shirts because my freaking nipples would show through my shirt and I would be embarrassed. And I thankfully, I didn't struggle with my weight for a long time. Going into high school, I dropped a lot of weight. But I did struggle with like body image and yo-yo dieting for years, well into college. And at least for me, it really has been education itself that has helped me a ton, right? Because I'm the type of person, if I like something, I become pretty obsessive about it. So when I started learning about fitness, dude, I would watch every YouTube video. Back in the day, it was, I really liked Scooby. Did you ever watch Scooby?
Of course, dude. Oh my god.
Scooby was like the number one.
About that guy in forever.
And then,
he was jacked, dude.
Yeah. And then Chris Jones with Physiques of Greatness.
Yeah.
Those were like my 2 go-tos. But
Scooby. Oh my gosh. I used to watch him. That's so funny.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
I like his stuff. Have you seen any of his stuff recently?
Is he still making stuff?
So he got off for years, and then he got back on. And his stuff now is pretty good. I'll have to show you.
Is it really?
It's like his Instagram stuff is pretty good.
Wow.
He's like hiking in a Speedo. And he's like, if you don't like it, fuck it. he's like 60 something. Jackson. Yeah, it's great. Where was I with the story? So the whole point is that I became so obsessed about this whole nutrition and fitness stuff. And I think unfortunately and fortunately, you have to go through some of those peaks and valleys, right? Because if you don't know anything, and you hear somebody talk about sustainable fat loss, and you hear somebody talk about this diet, the diet's more attractive.
Yeah.
Right. So I went through all of that for years. And then when I was in college, I think I masked a lot of the body image issues because I just like cared about like bodybuilding style stuff. So I was either always cutting, like super restrictive, waking up, doing the fasted cardio, all that stuff for no reason, because I don't have the bodybuilding genetics and I never even cared about it, but I lived that lifestyle. And then if I wasn't cutting, because I just got over it, I would freaking balloon up and gain 30, 40 pounds in a couple months because I was dirty bulking. Yeah. So being able to find something that's sustainable and maintainable really took me a long time. And I think education itself was a big catalyst for that.
What did you study? You said there's that year after that you could choose what you wanted to study. What was that?
So the postdoctoral mentorship, it's not necessarily something you can choose to study. So when you finish a PhD, oftentimes, if you want to do research in a field that's slightly different than the field that you studied, you'll do a postdoctoral mentorship under a mentor that studies the specific thing you want to do. Sometimes, because academia can be quite competitive, you don't get the position that you want right after your PhD. So you do the postdoctoral mentorship for like more credentials, essentially, more publications, stuff like that, right? So my PhD was in clinical nutrition. And the lab that I worked in studied how different foods, essentially the functional benefits of specific foods.
Oh, cool.
How different foods can help slow down or reverse certain diseases.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So we did a lot of work on like black beans and cardiovascular health. We did some work on bitter melon. I'm not sure if you're familiar with bitter melon.
No.
The scientific name is Mormordica.
Okay.
It's very popular in like Eastern medicine.
Oh, cool.
But it has some blood sugar regulating properties.
Cool.
So we were doing some research there to see if it could help regulate blood sugar in pre-diabetics. And then my actual dissertation was on the effects of dried plums, so prunes,
No way.
on bone health.
Really?
Yeah, there's some properties of dried plums that help slow down the progression of bone loss. Nowhere nearly as strong as just lifting some weights. Some like it just lifts some weights, but from a nutritional perspective, it's one of the best things that you can do.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. So my professor had done some work on postmenopausal women, seeing how dried plums can slow down the progression of bone loss. And so when I joined the lab, he had gotten a big grant to do the same study, but in osteopenic men.
Oh, cool.
So we were seeing if the effects were similar in men.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Dude, I love that.
And then the postdoctoral fellowship was more like, I've always cared about like the body composition and sports nutrition stuff. So there was a professor by the name Mike Ormsby, who I actually want to connect you with. He's amazing.
I know that name.
Yeah.
I don't think I've interacted with him. I may have. I apologize if I have, but I know that name.
Dude, he's great. He's great. He to me was first like a mentor in school, and now he's a mentor outside of school. He's fantastic. But he really studies things like protein timing, how that affects sleep quality, body composition, a lot of training studies. And part of it too was like right when I finished my PhD, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do professionally. And I knew there was this opportunity to keep in mind about like the landscape as well. I finished my PhD right when COVID was starting. So like academic jobs were difficult to find because there was so much uncertainty around funding because you couldn't be present for research. Right. All the research we did was clinical research. So Dr. Ormsby gave me the opportunity to do a postdoc with him. And we were just, at the time, I was helping him write a textbook, an exercise physiology textbook, doing some research on pre-bedtime protein feeding, which is a lot of the work that he does. And then after that, it wasn't a full year. I think it was about 9 months is when I transitioned to doing the online coaching stuff. Amazing.
What did you mean by academia being highly political?
You have to kiss a lot of ass.
So it's not as merit-based as much as it is. Like...
It is merit-based, and it also is not just who you know, but who you get along with.
Is it nepotism, you mean?
I will preface this by saying that was my experience. And I'll share why. The professor that was my mentor during my PhD, the whole aspect of like getting to become a tenured professor is so that you have the freedom to do the research that you want to do without the pressure of like having to perform at a certain level of expectation with your job being at risk, right? Because before you are a tenured professor, there is a tremendous amount of pressure, right? Like young professors work crazy hours for unfortunately very little pay relative to the amount of schooling. Because like, starting salaries might be around $70,000, $80,000, which is not bad money, but compared to the amount of schooling that you go through and the hours that you put in, it's not a lot, right? So to get to become a tenured professor, You have to produce a certain amount of research. I won't say there's luck involved, but there is an aspect of luck involved because sometimes you have certain connections. So your research might be more willing to be funded. Sometimes you write a grant and it gets funded. Like funding rates are super, super low. And then there's a lot of politics within like the actual, what's the word I'm looking for here? Within the department itself, right? So my professor was a tenured professor who had been there for over a decade. My professor was also very like outspoken person. Okay. He did not care. Like if it was on his mind and it was on his heart, he would share it. And so he ruffled a lot of feathers with the chair of the department, the dean of our school, with certain people that were higher up in the university that were in charge of whether like research was accepted or not, like whether you were allowed to do things. So while I was there for my short 4 years, I saw how many times they tried to like attack him, to take down research, to remove certain like professorships he had, to remove certain luxuries that he had, simply because he didn't see eye to eye with a lot of people that were on top of him.
That's devastating.
And my professor was also, he was really transparent. Like he would get these emails that he should definitely not be showing his students. But he would, like, very chill guy. He was in his late 60s. He would like, Joseph, come here. He's like, look at this email. He's like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. So I was
like
able to see
email from other people in the department.
Correct. So I would see things and I'm like, that's not what I want. And I remember I would talk to him and I'm like, because he had been at different universities. I was like, is it like this everywhere? Because you want me to go down this line of work. What you're showing me does not make me want to go down this line of work. And he was like, it's like this everywhere. It's the worst I've experienced here, but it's like this everywhere. And so that was a big turnoff for me. The parts of academia that I really enjoyed is like mentorship and teaching and research. I don't like doing the same thing every single day. And academia is very diverse. Sometimes you're working on writing a grant. Sometimes you're in the lab doing research. Sometimes you're teaching classes. Sometimes you're mentoring students. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. But the political aspect of it, man, I did
sucks.
not. Yeah.
Do you think it was because of how he was saying things or because of what he was saying? Both. Interesting. So they just more or less, they disagreed with his takes. And so they didn't like that. Whereas if he was saying it in the same way, but something they agreed with, it probably wouldn't have been as big of a deal.
Correct.
That sucks.
Or calling people out for things that were sketchy with their research or, like certain things, that were being pushed so that it would benefit particular people and not others. He would speak out against those things.
He was doing what's right.
Yeah.
And people didn't like that.
He was just about being fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sucks. Before we dive in, I also want to touch on the body image stuff. I was planning to talk about it later, but you already brought it up. And so do you still struggle with body image at all, or is that in your past?
I would say very, very, very minimally.
Okay.
I think we all as dudes, it's like, oh man, like I have a little bit of body fat here. But honestly, not at all, dude. I was this height, weighing 160. I was a stick.
How tall are you? Just so people can know.
6'4", 6'5".
Yeah, you're huge.
Yeah. To put into perspective, I weigh 215 now, so I was about 40, 50 pounds lighter than I am now.
That's crazy.
Well, I used to wrestle in high school. I think you wrestled as well, right?
I didn't know you wrestled.
Dude, for a very short period of time, I was trash.
Oh.
Because I should have been wrestling in the 181 weight class.
Yeah.
But we had somebody who was really good at that weight class. So my coach was like, if you want to wrestle, you got to get down to 160.
Oh.
So dude, imagine a lanky dude wrestling at 160. I had good skill and stuff. I just had no muscle, no strength.
Yeah.
So I say 160. I probably sat around 170, 175 without cutting.
Yeah.
But I was a stick. And I remember going to the beach and being embarrassed to take my shirt off. Right? Where I definitely don't experience any of that now. I would say it's really, I think what has helped is like being married and having kids and really realizing that those are the things that are important to me. Like my kids don't give a fuck about that.
Yeah.
My wife doesn't. I know objectively I'm in really good shape.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, I would like to be in a little bit better shape. But I talk about
You mean
this
like from a physique perspective?
Yeah, from a physique perspective. Yeah, exactly. Because like, I mean, who wouldn't like to have like visible abs? It's cool,
yeah,
right?
Of course.
But something that I talk in my content about often as well is the fact that I'm very, very aware of what sacrifices are necessary to get there. And I know that objectively the upsides just aren't worth it. It wouldn't objectively improve my health in any way because I'm healthy. You know, I have a healthy body fat percentage. This is something that people talk about a lot, you know, like losing body fat improves your health to an extent, right? If we look at the data on this, it's a U-shaped curve where if you're very overweight, it's unhealthy, but if you're very lean as well, it's unhealthy, right? So I know that losing more body fat wouldn't make me objectively healthier. It wouldn't add any joy to my life. Maybe a little more success professionally if I take off my shirt on social media, like, yo, I'm jacked, get my workouts. But aside from that, just the sacrifices that would be necessary to get there just aren't worth it for me at all. So it's not something I struggle with much now, thankfully.
You know, what's also interesting about like the more success professionally, I actually even disagree at this point, because I bet what would happen is the people who care about that would buy your programs, whatever, but then your clients would be people that you don't actually want to work with, because they only bought from you because of how you look, not because of how well you articulate yourself, not because of how educational you are, not because of how much you actually care, just because, oh, he looks like that, I want to look like that. Now they have unrealistic expectations because you look like that, so they assume you're saying. That's what people do when they use their body as the selling point. Whether they're overtly saying it or not, they're saying you can achieve this result. You can look like me if you do the program that I have, if you eat like I eat. So you might make more money short term. I think long term it would actually be worse, and you'd hate your job because you're working with people who are not at the point in which you actually want to work with them. When you don't use your body to sell, you actually end up you are forced to use your expertise and your knowledge and the way you articulate things. Then you actually get people who are ready, willing, and able to learn from you, and those are the best clients.
Yeah, definitely. I said it jokingly for sure.
Yeah, no, I know. I was like, we should talk about that.
No, it's a good point. Because it's true, man. Like people inevitably see a picture and think like, oh, that's what I'm going to achieve. There's so many factors outside of your control that affect how your body changes.
100%. Yeah. All right. So I have a bunch of questions that I pre-prepared. Some of them based on some of your social media posts, which, by the way, if you don't follow Joey, his Instagram is in the show notes. And also we're going to put your podcast in the show notes as well.
Perfect.
I want to start off by talking to you about exercise snacks. And you said research has shown that walking for as little as 2 minutes every day for every 30 to 60 minutes, so 2 minutes every 30 to 60 minutes, can dramatically improve your blood sugar, blood pressure, cardiovascular health. Tell me more.
Yeah. So I've talked about this concept a couple times simply because I think people feel like the barrier of entry for exercise is so high. It's not, right? It could be really, really low. And there's more and more research coming out on this concept of exercise snacks, which is just like small bouts of exercise. Seem to be very helpful, because the thing is, we should all be getting a certain amount of movement, right? But it doesn't have to be all at once. Oftentimes, you know, Jordan, people have kids, they have careers, they don't have a full 60 minutes or 90 minutes or whatever it is to dedicate to a full workout.
Or even 30 minutes.
Yeah, or even 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like you could just do something for 5 minutes and do it a couple times throughout the day, and that's going to have dramatically beneficial impacts on your health, right? Because I think it's also important to be realistic about these things. Will that potentially help you achieve the physique that you're after? Maybe not.
Definitely not.
Depends on what you're trying to achieve, right? Because if you are in a position where you're fairly unhealthy, like it'll have dramatic benefits for your health, and if you pair it with some nutritional strategies for your body composition as well. But most people just want to feel good and be healthy and move a little bit better. And so what we're seeing in the research is that it doesn't matter if you do it all at once or break it up. What matters is that you're doing it, right? So we're seeing small amounts of walking can be really beneficial for blood sugar regulation. This is something we've known for quite some time, specifically if you're walking after meals, particularly for people who have slightly elevated blood sugar levels, really helps with lowering blood sugar levels. The mechanisms there are pretty simple. Essentially, typically we need insulin, right, to take sugar from our blood into our muscle, into our liver, into our fat. But there are some insulin-independent mechanisms as well to lower blood sugar, meaning that there are ways to lower your blood sugar that don't require insulin. So essentially what insulin does, and I'm going to get a little nerdy here just so people understand, muscle is our biggest reservoir where we hold the most amount of blood sugar, primarily in the form of glycogen, which is how we store glucose, right? So insulin binds to a muscle cell And there's this little protein called a GLUT4, GLUT4. That's a glucose transporter 4. There's a number of different glucose transporters. And when insulin binds to the insulin receptor, it essentially tells this transporter protein to come to the outside of the cell. And when it comes to the outside of the cell, now glucose can get in through it. Okay, think of it like a door, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
We need insulin to do that. But we could also do that through muscle contraction. So when a muscle contracts, it stimulates the translocation of that GLUT4 transporter to the cell membrane as well. So we can lower blood sugar by just like walking, because there's a ton of contraction in our lower body.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure where you want to take the conversation there when it comes to exercise snacks, but dude, getting one set of push-ups, which takes a minute, right? First thing in the morning, wake up, do a set of push-ups. Maybe as you walk out the door, do a set of squats. It could be so simple. You could incorporate it into your daily routine already, and it wouldn't take an extra minute of time.
Yeah.
Because it really is that simple. You could do it with your kids too. I talk about this often because inevitably when I talk about the fact is that realistically you need to dedicate time to exercise. And when people say they don't have time, this is the same thing we were talking about initially about resiliency. And you can choose to be a victim of your circumstances because some people have a much harder time than others. I'm not denying that. But despite that, you have the option, either you do something or you don't do anything, right? But that something doesn't have to be really difficult. And when I talk about those concepts, oftentimes people are like, well, you don't understand because X, Y, Z. And sometimes people have to work 2 jobs and they have to come home to kids. And man, I get it. But dude, little kids like playing. Play is exercise. I tell my son, I kind of combine exercise with healthy eating habits because he cares about being strong. Because I work out in the backyard and he's like, I want to be strong like you. I want to be big like you.
That's the best.
It's the absolute best, dude. The best, the absolute best. But when he doesn't want to eat certain things, I will take a huge bite and be like, oh my God, I'm getting so strong. And then if he still doesn't want to eat it, I'll take another bite and be like, oh my God, look at this. And I'll drop on the floor and do a push-up. I'm like, I just did that because of the food. Smart. And so he will do those things too. But it's like, you could just play with your kids for 5 minutes. Show your kids that you could do a push-up. Just get your heart rate up for 5 minutes and it'll be incredibly beneficial.
Bro, when I saw that you were posting about exercise snacks, I got really excited for many reasons, not least of which I feel like so much of the information in the fitness world is not actually practically helpful to the people who need it. And exercise snacks are, in my opinion, arguably the most practical thing that someone can implement immediately, right? Like while they're listening.
Yeah.
Like get up and go on a walk, do 10 squats, do wall push-ups, like just any movement. And there's, in my opinion, nothing is more practical than that. And it will legitimately have one of the biggest impacts on your health. And combining that with people not realizing that it will have a big impact on their health. People they don't think it will. And I think a lot of it is because depending on who you're following in the fitness industry or what you're interested in, if you're really into strength training or you want to get into strength training, so much of what we're being told now is you need to go to failure. You need to go to failure. If you're not going to failure, it's not going to work. And it's like, well, okay, if I can't go to failure, then why would I even bother doing it if it's not going to work? And I think people have trouble differentiating between, well, this is to optimize muscle growth for someone who's already more advanced versus I just want to feel and move better. I want to improve my cholesterol. I want to improve my heart health. I just want to be more fit and healthy. And that's where it's like, okay, we need to differentiate between this. But for the average, this is for everybody, but for the average everyday person, just taking a minute, 2 minutes and getting some movement and never mind the behavioral side of very rarely does it just work out to be 1 minute. Usually it'll elongate and go into something further than that. But even if all you do is just walk for 1 minute, it all of a sudden takes those pieces of advice that I think people overlook, like park further away from the grocery store or like every 30 minutes, get up from your desk and go on a walk around the office. People hear that and they think, that's not going to do anything. It's like, no, it does. It legitimately improves your health. And I think the more that we talk about it and the more that we hammer this home, that legitimately is improving your health, this 1 minute, these 2 minutes of doing bodyweight squats, walking around the office, whatever it is, like this is a legitimate way to improve your health. And if you don't know where to begin, you can start with this and it will make a big difference. I was so glad to hear you talk about it. It's something I've incorporated in the inner circle. So like we have these like monthly workouts that are more comprehensive, but then we have these workout snacks that are like could be like 5 minutes, could be 15 or 20 minutes, but you could do them anytime. And listen, I think that was a weakness of the inner circle before, where it was we just have these comprehensive ones. It's like, no, let's put in these smaller ones that they aren't as comprehensive, but they will improve a specific goal right now in a very brief period of time. So to hear you talk about it, I got really excited because I don't see many other people talking about it.
Gosh, that's a great idea to do even with our clients as well. Like giving them the option to have some of those things. Because I think for people like you and myself, Jordan, where we've been doing this for so long, it's like, well, if I want to move for 5 minutes, I just, have some ideas and move for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But oftentimes people struggle with the decision fatigue, right? And so I think doing it in a structured way like that is really smart. Talking about this concept of exercise snacks, and this is somewhat of a tangential topic, but they go hand in hand. There's one of the things that people often blame is their metabolisms.
Oh yeah.
Right. And we can take this conversation in a million different directions, but one of the biggest contributing factors to your metabolism, well, two things: your overall body mass, because the bigger you are, like the more energy you burn, right? And the way that I explain that to people, it's like, what requires more energy, throwing a pebble or like pushing a big boulder? Pushing a big boulder, right? It's just going to take more energy to move. And then secondarily is the amount of muscle mass you have on your body, right? So there's really cool research looking at normal weight, healthy women versus overweight or obese women, but they control for the amount of muscle mass they have.
Oh, interesting.
Right?
That's because control.
Exactly. To see if there really are differences in the metabolic rate of healthy women who are not overweight versus those who are unhealthy and overweight.
Do you know, sorry to interrupt, how do they define unhealthy? Do you know?
Gosh, I don't remember the specific
No worries.
metrics.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm really good with general concepts and explanations, and then I always forget very minute details of like this was the cutoff or whatnot.
I don't know if it was like cholesterol levels, blood pressure.
Oh, no. Sorry. It was not, okay, I shouldn't have used the word unhealthy. It was really just to see if there's a difference in the metabolic rate between overweight and obese individuals and normal weight. Yeah.
Yep.
And what they found is, as you would assume, no differences in metabolism.
Yep.
But very big differences in lifestyle factors.
Shocking.
And they weren't even looking at nutritional factors here, but the biggest differences were that people who were normal weight stood and walked twice as more as people who were overweight or obese. No other difference. Okay. So the overweight or obese people just sat or laid substantially longer, like twice as long.
Literally double.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Exactly. So it's like if you can just intentionally engineer movement into your day, it has a massive impact. It could be really simple. Like you mentioned, setting a timer every 30 minutes, going for a 5-minute walk. If you're not able to do that, a walking pad under your desk is so accessible.
Oh my gosh, dude. I love the walking pad.
Myself, if I hop on a call, I have a desk like this. I will just walk in circles around the desk for an hour.
Yes.
So it's like, it's hard to, not hard, but like if you don't have that habit, you need to remind yourself somehow, right? One of the things that we talk about with clients is like, how do we engineer new habits? And we need to identify the trigger that's going to help us remember to do the behavior, right? So this is where I think like having a sticky note or an alarm on your phone at first, super helpful because you just forget about stuff, right? And then even using the reminder itself is a habit that you need to engineer as well, right? But if you can just be very mindful about slowly adding more movement in your day, if somebody is sedentary, I usually tell them like, forget about diet right now. Like, can we do some small things with your diet? Sure. But movement is so important.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny, when I was younger and earlier in my coaching, I actually focused more on nutrition first. I was like, let's fix this. But in the last, 5-7 years, I've switched it to movement first, mainly because when you start moving more, you immediately feel better. You notice, like, I feel better. I'm proud of myself. I accomplished something, even if it was just 10 squats or just a walk around the neighborhood, whatever it is. With nutrition, sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to make that first choice, and you don't necessarily feel better right away. Often you feel more deprived. You feel like, I can't have this. But if someone starts moving, almost always they'll feel better, and they start making better nutritional choices when they deem it as like worth it. And often that little bit of movement now makes it worth it for them to start eating better. So that trigger is often the movement. And it's we could even bring the genetics into the discussion. Let's go back to the research where it's like women who were healthier body weight, healthier body fat. they were standing up more and walking more. Someone might say, yeah, but maybe they have just a higher base level of NEAT, and like they genetically, like we all know that one kid in school who was just fidgeting all the time. They were moving all the time. It was easier for them to get up. It might legitimately be easier for someone to stand up and move more. Maybe they just have that propensity. Great. They might have that genetic predisposition. Now what?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, yeah, it might be easier for them. So maybe you have to remind yourself, and maybe it's like you got to fucking drag yourself out of your chair and stand up and walk around the office or walk around the kitchen or whatever it is. Maybe it's really difficult. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get it. It's fucking harder.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah. The concept of resiliency.
Yes.
Right? It's like, I think we're all naturally gifted at certain things, and we all struggle in other areas. Right. And that can be because of genetics. That could be because of childhood experiences. That could be because of a million different things. But so what? It really comes down to that, right? And
Right.
I hate saying it in that way because I don't want it to come off as
dismissive
or just like non-empathetic. There can be empathy, and then there can also be realism, right? Like, yes, it is more difficult for you, but if you want this, it doesn't matter how hard it is. You still have to do this thing, and you have to figure out a way that it's going to work for you specifically.
And this is why I like breaking it down into the lowest possible barrier. I'm not
100%.
saying go to the gym 7 days a week for 3 hours. I'm not saying you can never have your favorite foods. We're just saying get up out of your chair and walk for 2 minutes. Do that every 30 to 60 minutes. It makes a legitimate impact.
And when you were saying earlier that you prefer starting with exercise because it makes you feel good immediately, I agree with that wholeheartedly. But there's also the aspect that exercise just has a more positive impact on your health than nutritional changes.
Yeah.
And it hurts
I was
me
going to say
that because I studied nutrition. Actually, funny story. This is where I was saying I was a really bad student. So in college, when I first started my freshman year and my sophomore year, horrible student because I grew up in a really strict household, so I never had freedom to really do much. Like go out with friends or do this, like no freedom. And when I got to college, all the freedom, right? So I would stay up till like 4 a.m. most days, wake up at noon or 1, not make it to class. And so I actually started as an exercise science. Before that, I started as a music major.
Really?
I wanted to be a music major. I was in the marching band because I've always been extremely passionate about 3 things: food, music, and fitness. Like I've been passionate about those 3 things since as long as I can remember.
Do you play instruments?
Yeah.
What do you play?
The guitar and the saxophone. I wanted to major in like jazz performance.
Really?
And play the saxophone professionally.
Dude, you should bring that into your content.
You think so?
100%. You should make songs about nutrition and
Well, dude, when you play the saxophone, you can't sing. And I have the world's worst singing voice, so I can't I can maybe like talk/rap.
Yeah, but you could like man, I'm not a music guy. Mitch is a music guy. Mitch is super musical, but like I'm thinking you could do like banana, like it could be super fun and engaging. I would love.
We'll have to collab.
Yeah,
I'll play and you can be the face of it.
I'll be like a slam poet type style while you play. That'd be super fun.
Yeah. We'll talk about it.
So all right, so you were music, food, fitness.
So what I was gonna say is, because I was talking about how it hurts me to say that I think exercise does have a bigger impact on health and nutrition. And I studied nutrition at a very high level. I actually started as wanting to do music, then going into exercise science officially as my major, and then being forced to change my major because there was a class on Mondays at 8 a.m. that was a seminar. And the only thing you had to do to pass the class was show up. If you didn't show up 3 times, you failed the class.
Oh.
So I didn't show up more than 3 times. And I did that 2 semesters in a row.
Oh.
So the funny thing was that going into the second semester talking about habit formation, I was like, I'm going to fucking show up. Dude, I just couldn't. I was just having too much fun. Like I would stay up till 4 or 5 in the morning on Sundays, and then I just could not wake up at 7 in the morning. And so that happened 2 semesters in a row. And I got called in because I had to talk to the counselor or whatnot. And he was like, dude, you've got to change your major. I'm like, are you kidding me? He's like, no. And this is where I take things seriously, but I also don't really take anything seriously.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I got to pivot. Like it is what it is. And he was like, yeah, what do you want to change it to? And I was like, well, what's very similar in that college? He's like, well, that college has food science, nutrition, exercise science. I was like, all right, nutrition. And like, that was it.
So funny.
And so then I kind of just went into that route, which I also love very much, but my passion for exercise has always been there.
Interesting. Yeah, man. It's I know it's a highly debated topic. Like what matters more? Obviously they both matter. I feel like with nutrition you just have so much more you have so many more things you can choose from. Like, doesn't matter what culture you're from, what your favorite foods are. It's like you have so much variety to choose from to really achieve quote unquote optimal health. Like it's when people say there's like one diet, I'm like, no, there's not. There's so many diets and foods that all do the same thing. But even going back to what you were saying at the very beginning, these dried prunes, yeah, it might help with reducing bone loss, but like strength training is just way fucking better. It's just not even close.
I think there's two reasons why the nutritional aspect plays a role, but not as a significant of a role. And then I think there's very specific nutritional interventions that you can implement for very particular conditions, right? Like if somebody has high LDL cholesterol, yes, there are some nutritional changes that we can do to improve that. But one, the biggest impact on your health is your body composition, right?
So like in layman's terms, your body fat level.
Yes. Okay. Not just your body fat level, but your muscle mass as well. And this is why I say that exercise is so important, because you can lose weight just through diet, but your body composition, the ratio between muscle mass and fat mass might not change much. We actually see this term used in the research literature called normal weight obese, which simply means that somebody is normal weight based off BMI standards, but they have a high body fat percentage, which means they have low muscle mass. They're not healthy metabolically, right? I believe they're a little bit healthier than somebody who is obese and doesn't exercise. And I could be slightly wrong in the statistics here. They're either slightly worse or very similar to somebody who is overweight or obese, but is very active and lives a healthy lifestyle, right? Because that person will also have a high amount of muscle mass. So muscle is incredibly important for health. We just focus on fat, which is important to focus on, but muscle is really important as well. And exercise has the biggest impact on your body composition. It doesn't matter how much freaking protein you eat, right? If you're not moving your body, it's not going to really, I always like to think of nutrition as the blueprint to build a house, and the exercise and stuff is like the actual workers, right? Or the food are like the building blocks, right? The exercise is the stimulus, and the actual builders putting stuff together. That's a stupid analogy, but I think it helps paint the picture.
Yeah.
The other aspect of it is that even without talking about the body composition stuff, exercise just objectively improves health markers much more than a nutritional intervention does, right? Like walking or running or lifting some weights will improve your blood sugar much more than some bitter melon, how I was talking about earlier, right? So the effect size is something we need to talk about often too. This is like where the nuance is lost, specifically on like short form content. It's like, this thing helps this. Okay, but at what dose? By how much? In what population? And in general, what we see with nutritional interventions is that the effect size just means like how much it actually benefits, is substantially smaller than an exercise intervention if the person's not exercising.
Makes total sense. With that being said, you did mention there are nutrition interventions for something like high LDL cholesterol. I want to talk about that. So first let's just talk about cholesterol. Okay. So can you just explain, does eating foods high in cholesterol increase your actual cholesterol in your blood, in your body? And if someone does have high cholesterol, what can they do to improve it?
Yeah, great question. So the first question, if you eat cholesterol, does it impact your blood cholesterol? The simple answer is yes, to an extent, and more in some people than others, because there's a genetic component, right? I don't remember the name of the specific genes, but there's a particular gene. Individuals who have it just have a much higher predisposition for dietary cholesterol to impact their blood cholesterol. And that particular type of person should be much more careful about their cholesterol intake.
They're known as hyperresponders?
Hyperresponders, okay. Correct. And then the vast majority of people, like, yes, to an extent, but not much, right? Like where you eat cholesterol, it might impact your blood cholesterol a little bit, but like not a ton. And the reason is because our blood cholesterol isn't just influenced by the cholesterol that we eat in our food. Our bodies produce cholesterol, right? And our bodies maintain a homeostatic balance. Homeostasis just means balance, essentially. So I just said balance. But essentially it tries to maintain a balanced level, right? And so what typically happens is if you eat substantially more cholesterol, it lowers the production of cholesterol in your body. So the total amount of cholesterol may be relatively similar. And if you eat less, you might produce a bit more, right? And that homeostatic balance is influenced by a number of variables. Genetics is always a factor. Body composition is a factor, right? Dietary components are a factor because saturated fat actually impacts your blood cholesterol quite significantly. Again, there are people that respond more than others to that as well. But in general, for the vast majority of people, improving your body composition or losing body fat, if you have excess body fat, will have a much bigger impact on improving your cholesterol levels and just reducing your cholesterol intake.
So just losing body fat, building muscle is going to have a significantly greater impact usually than a nutritional intervention.
Yeah. And I don't want to get like too nerdy into this, but essentially people probably have heard of the term epigenetics.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So essentially we have genes, but those genes can be turned on or off. This is very simplistic, based off based off your lifestyle, essentially. Right? So you might be predisposed to a particular thing, whether it's high cholesterol or maybe have a slightly higher risk of particular cancers or certain diseases. But those genes need to be turned on, for lack of a better term. And there are things that you could do with your lifestyle that prevent those genes from being turned on to a certain extent. Right? So the lifestyle modification really impacts epigenetics, which can impact things like cholesterol production and really influence like the homeostatic level of cholesterol in your blood.
So which nutritional intervention specifically would you implement for someone who has high cholesterol, genetically or not, to improve their cholesterol?
Yeah, 3 things. Calorie deficit. Again, if the person is overweight. 2, increasing fiber intake, without a doubt, particularly soluble fiber, because there are different types of fibers. Right.
Can you explain like soluble versus insoluble?
Yeah. So insoluble fibers, as the name implies, are fibers that don't dissolve in water. So they actually decrease transit time, meaning you digest food a little bit faster, right? Not digest, but it goes through your intestines a little bit faster. I rectify there because digesting actually means like the absorption of stuff, right? But it doesn't dissolve in water. It moves through your intestines a little bit quicker. And then soluble fiber does dissolve in water. So when you eat more soluble fiber, it tends to form like a gel-like consistency in your stomach and your intestines. So it slows down transit time. So in many ways, it can aid in digestion. It can aid in hunger regulation. It can aid in blood sugar regulation because you uptake sugar at a slower rate since it slows down digestion. But soluble fiber also does something else that's really cool. So when we consume fats, we need to produce bile to help digest and absorb those fats. And bile acids are partially, they contain cholesterol, right? Typically, we recycle bile acids. So after we digest and metabolize foods, our body recycles that bile. But when we consume more fiber, we actually excrete more of that bile through our feces. So essentially, when you eat more fiber, you are literally getting rid of cholesterol from your body. So it just helps lower cholesterol levels. And the third thing, which is such a highly debated topic, and I understand why it's debated because, again, some people are more sensitive than others, but it's the substitution of saturated fats for unsaturated fats. And there's also debate here because people talk so much crap about seed oils.
Let's discuss this. This is really important.
But in general, there is no doubt that the substitution of saturated fats for mono and polyunsaturated fats helps reduce cholesterol levels, specifically LDL cholesterol, right? When we talk about cholesterol, it's not all the same stuff either, right? When we use the word cholesterol, people talk about HDL and LDL, which aren't really, it's not cholesterol. They are proteins that contain cholesterol. HDL travels through our bloodstream and actually picks cholesterol up, and LDL deposits cholesterol, right? And the reason why depositing cholesterol can be bad is because if it accumulates too much, there's oxidation and it creates a plaque, right? That's where you have atherosclerosis, a heart attack, a stroke, etc. By the way, all those things are the same thing. It's just localization is different, right? Like atherosclerosis in your periphery is the same thing as a stroke. A stroke is just in your brain. There's a blockage of the artery that prevents blood from flowing, so it explodes. That's what it is, right?
That's the best explanation I've ever heard of it, by the way.
Oh, sweet.
By far the best explanation.
A+?
Yeah, dude, A++.
Go tell my first grade teacher, dude. Green, red, can't get those, right? Where was I going with this? we were talking about the substitution of saturated fat for mono and polyunsaturated fat definitely has an impact there, right? Specifically on lowering LDL cholesterol. Now, some people argue that LDL cholesterol isn't the best indicator and that we need to look at indicators, and all of that is true. Like there are markers that are more indicative of your risk of cardiovascular disease than just LDL cholesterol. But we do know there's a relationship between LDL and heart disease, right? And the third thing I would say, Jordan, because I also don't want people to think that like everything is achievable through just nutrition and exercise. It's like there are genetic components, man. Some people are super healthy and they have super high LDL, right? And in those instances, talking to a medical professional is helpful because when it comes to medication, there are pros and cons, right? I think this is another thing that lacks so much nuance on social media. And we can talk about like Ozempic and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's like all good or all bad. And the truth is that nothing is all good or all bad. There are pros and cons. And in certain scenarios, you need to be able to weigh those pros and cons.
Yeah.
Right. If I have no issues with my cholesterol, why would I take a cholesterol lowering medication?
Right.
Right. But if your LDL levels are sky high and you've tried the nutritional interventions and you eat healthy and you exercise, there's a risk factor there. And for that person, medication might be the right choice for them.
You know, you even use the term sky high. And I'm very pro medication. I'm very pro medication. Maybe even too pro.
Sure.
To look at my own bias. But and tell me if I'm wrong. The way that I look at the development of atherosclerosis, heart disease, all these issues is it's usually not just like at one moment. It takes a long time to build up. And my concern is that someone may not have sky high LDL cholesterol. They might have sky high blood pressure right now.
Sure.
But if it's even mildly elevated or getting close, it's the damage that it's doing over years and years and years that leads to the heart attack, stroke, whatever it is. And so for me, it just goes to why, if you're already doing everything, you're already eating your fiber, your saturated fat is below 10% of your overall calorie intake, your body composition is good. If you're already doing all of that, why wouldn't you want to try and prevent this from causing more damage now and for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years? Why wouldn't you? Now, as you said, there are pros and cons to everything. And my bias is I'm very pro medication for people who need it. I just don't understand why someone wouldn't do that.
I'll give the slight pushback.
Yeah, please.
I think there are two factors here. If your cholesterol levels are, whether it's slightly high or very high, I think it's still important to get additional testing done because we can like objectively measure whether there's any calcification or blockage of arteries. And in many instances, people will have slightly elevated cholesterol and everything else with their blood work looks great. And they get some scans done and there's no calcification at all, right? It's
of the hard and the soft plaque.
Correct. Okay, so it's like you can argue that like that person might not necessarily need it. Here's why. Because even when we talk about like mild elevations, research is all based on averages, right? And we say like, this is the cutoff.
Yep.
Above this, bad. Below this, good.
Yep.
Also, it's not black and white. It's
Correct.
a spectrum.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
Just how we have cutoffs for you're pre-diabetic, now you're diabetic. It's like, well, it's really a spectrum, right? Like somebody who is mildly diabetic is not as healthy as somebody who is very diabetic, right? And anyways, bringing it back to the law of like just averages is that inevitably the vast majority of people are healthy at that average, but some people are healthy slightly above that.
That's a good point.
And some people can be at that cutoff and not be healthy. Because for them, because again, this stuff, physiology is so complicated, right? It's not just your LDL levels. This stuff plays in concert with so many other things like your genetics and other markers of inflammation, for example, and other like stress, for example, right? So the thing is, I'm very big on looking at objective markers. The hard thing is that for some things we don't have very objective markers, but we can look at calcification, right? So that's my small pushback there. Of like, just because you're slightly elevated doesn't mean that it's causing any particular harm either. And just because it's slightly lower doesn't mean it's not causing harm either.
So then the question is, how do you know?
It's tough.
And then you sort of have to weigh the risks versus benefits for yourself and say, listen, maybe it's causing harm, maybe it's not. We don't really know yet. So then you have to decide with you, your medical provider, what's the best choice and what are the pros and cons of doing this. For me, like I'm very I try and be as preventative as possible.
Yeah.
Starting with what I can control first, which is lifestyle factors, body composition, nutrition, exercise, sleep. Those obviously the most important, caffeine intake, all that stuff. But then for me, it's just, and this is not for everyone else, it's just for me, I would rather do everything I can to reduce my risk as much as possible. And that choice is going to be different for everyone. But that's just where I go with that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think people are just concerned about like, well, what other things am I putting at risk potentially?
Yeah.
Right. It's a hard choice.
What might that be?
It's a personal choice.
What are some of those risks?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not very well versed in understanding like all the risks associated with different types of medication, so I wouldn't be able to say. But it's always a concern, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, if I do this and it helps us one thing, what else might be going on? Right? Like, some statins actually, in some ways, actually increase blood sugar levels as well.
Yep.
Like I know my professor reduced his statin amount simply because his blood sugar was getting a little bit out of control. So like there are pros and cons, you know.
Of course.
I think this is also, when you talk about like, how do you know? Well, do you have a family history? Do you have a fairly stress-free life or manage stress well? Are you taking care of your lifestyle? But then like even just being able to say like your risk is this percentage, it's impossible.
Yeah. So it's a lot of guess and check and sort of just like trying to make the best decisions, and which is always start with what you can control. But if it's something you can't control because of a genetic predisposition, now 100%. You have to have that conversation.
100%.
One thing I would love to talk a little bit more about here is the saturated fat discussion and just giving some people some nuance and insight into why would you say reducing saturated fat is important for something like this, whereas someone else on social media who's saying, no, it doesn't matter, have all the ribeyes, have the butter, like fucking on the new recommendations for the food pyramid, putting butter on it, which I thought that was stupid. Just like, it's just stupid. Overall, I didn't think the entire thing was stupid, but I thought that was stupid. But even they buried in there, it said keep saturated fat under 10%.
Well, all they changed was the image.
Yes, exactly.
The actual saturated fat recommendations didn't change.
Which, by the way, if you're eating a good amount of butter, good luck keeping your saturated fat under 10%. And then also the steak on top of it as well. It's like butter and steak, your saturated fat's going to be significantly higher. Can you talk about saturated fat, maybe what it is, how it can impact your health, like why it's important to keep it relatively low compared to mono and polyunsaturated fats? Just give some more nuance to people.
Yeah, so saturated and unsaturated, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
Right? So first and foremost, fats, for the most part, are just a chain of carbons attached to themselves and then attached to a glycerol backbone. That is mumbo jumbo for people because they don't know what the hell that means. Right? But essentially, it's just like, think about it as a chain of carbons, okay? And I'm going to try to think of an analogy here. So if it's a shitty analogy, I apologize, guys.
No worries.
This is proof that it's like off the top, right? Let's say you have a chain, right?
Like a chain link.
Yep, a chain link. If you play with it, it's pretty fluid. It's pretty flexible, right? It moves. Unsaturated fats are more, the flexibility, okay, let me back up for a second. These chain of carbons are attached to each other and attached to hydrogens. Okay. A saturated fat is essentially fully saturated by hydrogen. Okay. I'm going to drop the analogy for a specific example that I realized doesn't make it work.
Okay.
So a saturated fat is fully attached to hydrogen. So each carbon is attached to 2 other carbons and 2 hydrogens because carbon can bond to 4 other things. Okay. A unsaturated fat has double bonds. Now we're introducing a more complicated topic, but essentially what it means is I just mentioned that carbon can attach to 4 other things. So in general, if a carbon is in the middle, it's attached to 2 other carbons and 2 hydrogens. Well, some of those attachments can be 2 to another carbon, right? So if there are 2 attachments to another carbon, that is a double bond, okay? And a double bond provides like more rigidity, less flexibility, okay? So think about like if you have a chain link, like locking it up in a certain situation or in a certain position, right? So unsaturated fats don't have as much hydrogen. They're not fully saturated. We have more of these double bonds, which changes some of the physical properties of the fat itself. Okay, so what we need to understand, like in organic chemistry and biochemistry, we often talk about the fact that the physical properties like the composition influences the effect. There's a specific term here, and I'm forgetting, but essentially, the shape of something impacts its actual properties.
Yeah.
Okay. So the fact that certain fats have double bonds, mono, polyunsaturated. Monounsaturated just means there's one double bond. Polyunsaturated means there's multiple of them, right? Versus saturated fats, they have different physical properties, right? And so in general, and the thing is, like, it's not just about the double bonds, because there's also differences in the lengths of fatty acids. So when we talk about saturated fats, it's nuanced because not all of them are equally harmful either, right? And this is where it gets complicated. In general, we see that short chain and medium chain fatty acids that are saturated don't tend to have the same negative impacts that longer chain fatty acids do. Some of them are 18 carbons long, 20 carbons long or more. Those seem to have worse health outcomes compared to like the shorter or medium chain fatty acids. And so what we see is, again, I hope that defines the difference between the two. It really just comes down to how much hydrogen is presently bound to the carbons in the fatty acid. For somebody listening, they're probably like, what does that mean? Maybe some people understand. That would be great. But in general, we see that when you consume more of these saturated fats, it has a negative impact on LDL cholesterol, cardiovascular risk factors as well, right? Triglycerides as well, obviously. And when we consume less of them and we're eating more of the mono and polyunsaturated fats, we see a lowering in some of those levels and improvement in health outcomes. So that's why like that substitution has a positive direct impact on your LDL cholesterol levels. We also see that some of this data is correlational, but that the more saturated fat people consume, the higher their risk of cardiovascular events is. So there's a clear like direct correlation between those two variables that's pretty strong, right? There are a few things in nutrition that like we see a clear correlation that's pretty strong between two variables. And then when we test different aspects of it in clinical trials, we see that relationship continues to exist. Saturated fat, LDL, cardiovascular events, a very strong correlation there, right? So, and there's also plenty of clinical data showing that if you take people who eat a certain amount of saturated fat and you don't change the total amount of fat they eat, but you just substitute them for mono or polyunsaturated fats, there's a reduction in those outcomes, right? In LDL cholesterol. Now, the difficult part is that like you can't keep that cohort for long enough to see if they reduce actual cardiovascular events. So for some of that data, we have to rely on more correlational data because you simply just can't test people for 20 years.
Right.
As you mentioned, cardiovascular outcomes don't happen overnight. I mean, they seemingly do, but the damage happens over decades. Right now, where the nuance comes with saturated fat is that we actually see that some saturated fats, for example, like coconut oil or even certain dairy sources, tend to have positive impacts on some of these health outcomes. The worst impacts seems to be from like fatty red meat sources. Right. So the ribeyes, that's where they come in. And then I think the second part of your question was, then why do some people on social media promote these things? Beats me, dude. They like ribeye. I mean, dude, who doesn't love a ribeye?
Dude, it's the best steak.
Right. And here's the thing. It's difficult to also, this is my opinion, okay? Because I will say, I don't think we have very, very hard data on this stuff. But just how we were talking about earlier, that there are genetic predispositions. And then on top of that, lifestyle and exercise are really important as well. Some of these people that are following a more carnivore-based diet are in great physical shape. They have good body composition.
Yeah, exactly.
They're very active. They live a seemingly healthy life outside of their dietary choices. And maybe they're not as genetically predisposed to poor health outcomes. Right? So they might be able to get away with some of these things. But that doesn't mean that like you should just do it because they do it as well. Because objectively, you should add some freaking fruits and veggies to that.
And we also, again, going back to it doesn't happen overnight. Most of these people haven't been eating this way for 10, 15, 20 years, and they're also relatively young. I don't wish ill on any of them. I hope they live long, healthy, happy, joyous, free, fulfilling, purpose-filled lives. But my concern is that not only are they doing themselves damage, but causing other people damage. I actually had a colleague of mine, not in the fitness industry, in the military world, who got caught up in the carnivore stuff. Like when I say healthy, I mean healthy body composition. Got caught up in the carnivore stuff, even though I was like, it's stupid, please don't be doing it. He was like, fuck it, I'm doing it. Dude, this is where I think a lot of people don't understand how this actually impacts health. He went to go get blood work done, and his blood was so thick that they had trouble getting it out. And then his blood literally congealed. And I forget the term for it, and you might know it, but like literally when they let his blood just sit you could start to see the separation between his blood
Yeah, there's so much fat
and
in
the
there.
fat, which is exactly what we see in ribeyes and these fatty steaks, or that's what your butter is.
Yep.
It's that the congealed fat.
Yeah.
And so I like to use this image because when people think about all like the science terminology, they don't understand this is what's happening inside of your blood, inside of your veins, inside. This is what's happening in your body. And so if you have a huge amount of saturated fat, then it's likely going to make your blood thicker. And when it's more thick, well, now then never mind making all these deposits, creating plaque and all of that. It's more difficult for your blood to travel through your body.
Yeah.
And practically, I think that image is important for people to understand. That's what's happening.
Yeah, I want to add a little bit more to what I was talking about earlier about like how the physical shape impacts the function.
Yeah.
Since saturated fats are more fluid, I mean, they have more flexibility than mono and polyunsaturated fats, they stack easier. And that stacking is what creates things like denseness in the blood, potentially an increased risk of plaque buildup, because you can literally stack it one on top of the other, right? Whereas if you think about a mono or polyunsaturated fat, I'm not sure how many people are like listening versus seeing, but if you are watching the episode and you see my hands, I will also verbally explain it. Imagine a straight line and then you slightly bend it. And that bend is there to stay, right? Like you can't unbend it. That's what a monounsaturated fat is. Now you take a polyunsaturated fat and it has many of those bends. So it's like a weird, awkward shape. So you can't perfectly stack stuff on top of each other and there's more gaps, right? So that physical property, that stacking of it is one of the negative impacts of consuming high saturated fat, without a doubt.
Yeah. It's just, that's super helpful, and it provides a lot more nuance to the discussion. And I think it gives people a visual of, oh, when I'm eating this is actually what's going into my blood, and this is what's actually making it difficult or easier for my blood to travel through my body, that's life.
Yeah. And I also want to add, it's not like you can't eat any saturated fat either,
Yeah, of course.
right? Because, I mean, quantity matters. Like your body can deal with a certain amount perfectly fine. The general recommendation is to stay below 10% of your total daily calories. Some people say that's really hard. It's really not.
No, it's not.
If you eat a decent amount of meat, like if you're not just eating straight ribeye steaks, even if you eat a good amount of red meat, if you just choose leaner cuts, it's not that hard to stay below that quantity. Yeah.
And then fiber will also help with that. I mean, yeah, completely agree. The other thing about the carnivore diet, they typically go towards like the naturalistic fallacy, like this is what our ancestors ate, which I always find funny for a number of reasons. The obvious one being, well, they didn't live very long, but also even more importantly that, and more like objectively in your face, our ancestors were not having ribeye steaks several times a day, every day. They often number one, they had to go out and hunt it, right? And it wasn't always available. And then they were also having fruits and berries and grains, and they were having like potatoes. They were, whatever was available to them. It's not like every meal was a ribeye fucking steak.
And other parts of the animal.
Yeah, every part of the animal.
Organ meat.
Yep.
Leaner cuts of meat, right? Yeah, it's funny because a lot of the carnivore dudes are just like, only ribeyes.
Yeah. It's like, dude, in what world did our ancestors only eat the ribeye?
Yeah.
You're out of your mind.
Very inefficient.
Yes. So you had brought up GLP-1s. I do want to go into that. You recently made a post that said you hate it when people talk about nature's Ozempic. And I want to dive into that. I want to talk about just GLP-1s as a whole. So why do you hate it when people say this is nature's Ozempic?
Because it's just not, it's what we talk about of like over marketing, overhyping things that just don't work the way you're saying they work.
Yeah.
Right? Jordan, I've talked about this before. I have no issue when people say, I do this and it works for me. I hate when people start to use either scientific language or marketing terms that exaggerate the potential impacts of whatever thing it is that they're trying to promote.
Agreed.
Right? So why do I hate when people use the term nature's Ozempic? First off, because typically the things that they're saying to do, like go against what the research says actually helps with hunger and satiety regulation. And then two is even if they are promoting things that help with hunger and satiety regulation, the effect size that we were talking about earlier is substantially lower than medication. Right? So if I say this is nature's Ozempic, what you're insinuating there is that if you do this, you'll have very similar impacts to Ozempic. And it's just like, you just don't, in that video, the person was saying that have some black coffee and intermittent fast, which objectively on its own, I have nothing against that.
Yeah.
I've used intermittent fasting. I know clients that have used intermittent fasting. Coffee's a thermogenic and it can help blunt hunger a little bit. But telling people that it's nature's Ozempic is BS.
Correct.
Right? The other part of it is when I mentioned it goes against what the research shows that like having a very well-balanced breakfast actually helps tremendously with hunger and satiety regulation. There's a little bit, and I'm not very well versed in this research, but there's some aspects of chrononutrition, right, in our natural circadian rhythm that if we align food intake with our hunger hormone regulation, it helps with overall hunger regulation. Ghrelin, which is our hunger hormone, tends to be highest in the morning. So making sure we eat during that time seems to be very, very beneficial for hunger regulation. And then secondarily, we also know that people that have a well-balanced large breakfast tend to have slightly higher, greater energy expenditure throughout the day. That's probably just fidgeting a little bit more, having a little bit more energy, you burn more calories, right? So I see it and I'm like, well, telling people to skip breakfast is not aligned with what the science shows. And if you don't like having breakfast and you skip it and it helps you regulate your hunger,
amazing.
By all means do it. But I've also realized, Jordan, the people that have success with something like intermittent fasting tend to be people who have relatively healthy habits already.
Yes.
Because I've worked with a lot of people that are just trying to get started. And they're like, well, I'm going to start with fasting. And then they're just like starving at night. And they don't have healthy dietary habits. So what do they end up binging on? Unhealthy crap. And they're like, well, the fasting stuff didn't work for me. It's like, yeah, because we're focusing on like the wrong levers here, right? It's not something bad, but it's not really helping you with the things that you need help with.
Or they're even if they're quote unquote binging on healthy stuff, I still don't want to encourage binging.
Sure.
Like some people, intermittent fasting can be a wonderful tool. It can be very, very, I've typically found is best for people based on their schedule, right? It can be wonderful. I've found for nurses or first responders, or nurses who I consider first responders as well, but nurses, firefighters, police officers, military, who also actually truck drivers. I found intermittent fasting can be wonderful for people who travel a lot for work. All of them, I found it can be a great tool, not for everyone, but it can be just because their work schedules are crazy. But it's not magic in and of itself. It doesn't do anything, as though like it's not better for fat loss as long as calories are equated. My concern is that when you take someone whose schedule doesn't fit with intermittent fasting and they're trying to force it, that all of a sudden they get so hungry that that when they do have their quote unquote feeding window, which I hate when people call it that, it's just fucking eating. Now they start binge eating.
Yeah.
And maybe it starts with more nutritious foods. And maybe it doesn't even progress outside of that. My issue is you're encouraging binge eating, which an uncontrolled eating that no matter how much you eat, it's like you just keep eating more and more and more and more. You go past your point of fullness. It's a real fucking problem.
Yeah.
And that's my issue when people try and force that lever, they force that methodology. It's like, it's not for everybody. And for people who struggle with binge eating, they often lean towards intermittent fasting when in reality, the best thing for them would be to eat a big breakfast.
Yeah. And then on top of that, it's two additional nuances here. And I know we want to talk about GLPs and we're talking about fasting. But it's like you can fast without skipping breakfast. The thing is, most people use fasting as I skip breakfast and then I eat later in the day. But we also know that eating more of your food overall earlier in the day is associated with healthy dietary habits as well. So you could start off the day and then finish eating by 5 or 6, which if you then start to think about that, just means don't really snack after dinner.
Yeah.
Because most of us fast about 12 hours every single day. What's the difference between 12 hours or 8 hours? Like it's not that big of a difference, right? So there's nothing inherently magical about just like eating for a shorter period of time because we're already not eating for half of the day most days, unless you're like snacking right before bed, right?
That's what I do.
I mean, I do too sometimes. But where was I going with this? Like if you want to use intermittent fasting, it would be a smarter strategy to eat earlier in the day, stop eating, relatively between 5 or 6 p.m. Most people aren't going to do that anyways. But I think it's just as simple as saying like reduce snacking, right?
Yes.
Prioritize breakfast. If I think about my day of eating, sometimes I snack at night, but when I don't, I'm technically intermittent fasting because I'll have breakfast around 7:30 or 8. I like waking up, having coffee, working for a little bit. And then I'll have breakfast like an hour and a half or 2 after. And then as a family, we have dinner around 5:30 or 6. That's it. Right. So 8 to 6 is what, 9 hours?
When do you work out? What time of day?
Typically around 10 in the morning.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah, so I do some work. I have breakfast, and then an hour and a half, I'll go train.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I typically work out late at night.
I know you do.
So I'm like that. Usually having a lot of food between like 8 and 1.
Yeah.
And then I'll wake up and I end up, not because I don't want to, but like I get really busy in the morning. So I just typically will end up not eating until, I don't know, 11, 12, 1 p.m., which I guess someone could say is technically intermittent fasting.
Sure.
But like whatever. I'm not really hungry.
Yeah.
So, and I'm focused on other shit. But also, like, you see, I'm having this coffee with milk in it. It's like, so technically, I'm not intermittent fasting because I just had a big fucking thing of milk. So, yeah, it's the biggest lever to pull is total calories. And then I do think that having a consistent meal schedule is really helpful, just because it can regulate when you're going to be hungry. So it's like people who are just very erratic with their eating, and I'm just going to eat at any point in time. They have a much harder time knowing when I'm actually hungry, maybe just when I just feel like snacking, where having a consistent schedule can be helpful to know, hey, I'm about to get hungry. This is what I'm going to eat. And that can be helpful.
Two things. It is incredibly helpful. Like the research clearly shows that as well. When we think about regularity, there are two variables that seem to be correlated with better health outcomes and better body composition outcomes here too. One is consistency with meal times, right? Like I eat very similar from day to day when it comes to like what time I have breakfast, lunch, dinner. It doesn't matter the number of meals that you have. The second variable, which people never talk about, and it's very similarly correlated, is meal size similarity. Meaning across days, your breakfasts are similar size, your lunches are similar size, your dinners are similar size, right? Consistency. It's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
But if today you had half a banana for quote unquote breakfast and tomorrow it's a huge meal, like we also know that when you have consistency with your eating habits, there's more regularity in your hunger regulation as well. You tend to get hungry at the same times every day, right? And if there's there's a very irregular schedule there, it's hard to have that consistency with your hunger management as well. I wanted to touch on something because you mentioned, I think this consistency thing is important with timing, but maybe not as important as other things. I like to break this down into like a framework of hierarchy of importance, right? And when it comes to, let's just use fat loss, but whether it's just maintaining weight, whatever it is with nutrition, I think there are three important variables that are very objective around nutrition. And the importance is energy balance at the bottom of the pyramid, most important, right? I also hate to say this, but like your diet can be very shitty. And if you're within an appropriate energy balance, you will be healthier than somebody who is way overeating food and it's healthy, right? So energy balance, number one. If then we take it a step further, I think it's really about one, optimizing your food choices for health related outcomes. But in the aspect of like fat loss, it really is about managing hunger and satiety, right? So I think energy balance is at the base of the pyramid. Right above that is food choices. So whole foods versus more processed foods, protein and fiber versus meals that are devoid of that. And those factors on top of energy balance are going to do a ton for helping you preserve muscle, improve health, regulate hunger and appetite. And then above that, at the very tip of the pyramid, I would put things like nutrient timing, where it's like cover your bases first and then focus on something like nutrient timing. And then if I think about it from the perspective, like that would be objective how I would set things up for somebody who's trying to lose fat or just maintain their weight, improve their health objectively around diet, right? And then if I think about it from a sustainability perspective too, long term, what I tend to tell people is like, I think there are three really important skills. One is you have to learn about energy balance. You can't get away from it. Then I would group food choices, timing, environment all into one, because those things help with things like cravings, snacking, hunger regulation. And then on top of that, I think it's really important to develop the skill of flexibility. And I think that's where people like completely miss the mark.
Yeah.
Because they're just so hyperfixated on their diet. It's like, you can be within an appropriate energy balance. You can be eating all the right foods, but you could be hating your life because you still do it in a way that's so strict. So that flexibility component, I think, really adds to the long-term sustainability of any plan.
I like that you framed flexibility as a skill.
It is.
You have to learn it.
It is.
And you're going to have times that you struggle with it, but you have to learn how to do it.
Do you know, and you know, sometimes it's hard to talk about some of these things because I haven't experienced it to the extent that other people have. And, you know, when we talk about food choices, like, yes, the data shows that if you eat more protein, it does this thing. But like flexibility is such a subjective thing, right? Because there's also not like you have to be this flexible. It really depends on the person and the type of lifestyle they're trying to live. And I think like living those experiences makes it a lot easier to speak to those struggles. Do you know who Ethan Suplee is?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
I want to get him on the podcast.
Oh, cool. Dude, I just did his show a couple days ago.
Yeah.
But what I really like about his show is that he then opens it up to the audience. There's live Q&A.
Oh, nice. I love that.
And this guy, the first guy, I forget his name, but he was saying that he had lost, I believe it was 170 pounds.
Wow. Amazing.
Great. But he's like, I don't know what normal is anymore. He's exercising every day. And he's like, I need to learn how to live a more normal lifestyle. And the first thing I told him, I was like, man, like, don't let other people define what normal is to you. Like, define that between you and your wife and your family, because it's going to be different for everybody. I was like, I'm not going to discourage you from exercising every day if you like exercising every day. He's like, yeah, I wake up at 4 before everybody and I get my 2 hours in and I love it. And I'm like, so do that. It's not causing you any harm. And the more living a normal life came really around nutrition, because he's been really restrictive with his diet for over 2 years now. And so that is his new normal. But he's like, I see it impacting my relationship with my wife because she wants to go out to get pizza every once in a while. And I don't know how to do that. And I think one of the struggles for people, Jordan, is that they try to go from living this very strict, restrictive lifestyle, whatever it is that they did to lose weight, to now having no guardrails. And that transition is practically impossible. I think that's one of the reasons why people also rebound so much, right? I think the methods they use to lose weight sometimes are too restrictive. And then 2 is they don't have a plan after they lose weight, because even if you lose weight in the most sustainable way, there's still aspects of weight loss that are unsustainable. The fact that you're losing weight, you can't lose weight forever. So for maintenance, things have to be a little bit different. But I like to do things that transition into like maintenance and living a normal lifestyle just as methodical as somebody would approach a weight loss phase, right? I told this person, if the goal is to be able to go out with your wife to eat some pizza once a week and not worry about it, don't start with once a week if you feel nervous, right? Maybe do it once this month and just see that nothing happens. Then add a little bit more, have some guardrails, right? Like the same way how we go from like 2,000 calories, or let's say it a little bit higher because I don't want anybody going lower than that. Let's say 2,500 calories to now weight stalls to now 2,300 calories. I think it's easy with stuff like that and like how many grams of protein, because it's very objective, and habits and behaviors are inevitably not as objective. But I think we need to have an objective plan to help people transition towards a more like normal maintenance type of lifestyle. I don't know why I went on that rant. I think it was a tangent of one of your questions earlier.
It's important, and I agree. It's one of the things that we talk about in the inner circle very frequently is maintenance is a skill.
Yes.
Right? And people very often say fat loss is the easy part, maintenance is the hard part. And like I think they're both really difficult realistically. But what I've found is people often get very good at being in a deficit. Their skill of being in a deficit is like high level, but they suck at being able to maintain it afterwards. And I think it's because they don't practice maintenance. So they'll often be like, all right, I'm going to go really hard with this deficit. And they do it for 8, 12, 16, 20 weeks, whatever it is. And then they just jump right into maintenance. It's like, okay, so you've done this for a really long time, but you haven't practiced maintenance, which is one of the reasons why I like having, some people call them diet breaks. I often call them maintenance breaks, but it's where it's like, hey, after a certain point, how about you take 2 weeks and just practice maintenance? I know you're not where you want to be be fat loss wise, but I don't want your first time practicing maintenance to be when you've already achieved your fat loss goal. When you have 20 more pounds to lose, let's practice maintenance for 2 weeks. Then go back into a deficit for a month, 2 months, whatever it is. Then let's practice maintenance again. Then go back into a deficit, then go back into maintenance. So by the time you actually achieve your goal, you've already practiced maintenance 4, 5, 6 times. It's not difficult. It's not as scary. You've already developed this skill. And so I completely agree. And I think this goes massively overlooked and under-discussed, where it's like maintenance is a very difficult skill that you have to learn, which is why I don't know anyone, including at the highest levels of fitness, who've lost all the weight they wanted to lose and then succeed in maintenance the first time. It's a skill. And so having these breaks that you can practice maintenance, that the other issue is when people think of a diet break, they end up just binging.
Yep.
They just like, all right, well, now I'm not on a deficit anymore, so I'm going to eat as much as I can. No, that's not how you actually maintain your weight loss. Let's practice the skill of mildly increasing calories to a more sustainable point where you'd be more comfortable once you do actually lose your weight.
Yeah, and I will also add here, I think one of the reasons why people have such a hard time with that skill is because when they are losing body fat, the primary things they are focusing on is their caloric intake and their body weight. And And now we transition towards maintenance where those two variables are not the primary variables anymore. Therefore, like the structure that they've used is not the structure that's going to get them to that next level of where they're trying to be, which is really being able to maintain maintenance. And I say this very specifically because when I first started working with clients online, and I was working with Lane, a lot of the people that came to us naturally were fitness enthusiasts, right? And so I would start working with somebody, and from day one, it's like, these are your calories. And they know how to do that. They've done it before. And then over time, I started realizing that I really, really like working with people who don't know about fitness.
Yeah, same.
Because it's just selfishly more rewarding, right?
Yeah.
And I started realizing that with that type of person, there are different struggles, right? Even if you give them their calories, they'll have a hard time sticking to it, or they're just like hyperfixate on their calories and nothing else. And then when they transition to maintenance, they don't have any of the other habits. Because really, when it comes to maintenance, it's just like having the habits in place that actually help you maintain your results. And if you lose weight and all you're doing is focusing on your calories and your macros and nothing else, it makes sense. That's you're taking that structure away. How do you maintain now? So what we do with clients now when we start, especially if they've had a history of like yo-yo dieting, gaining and losing weight, the first 12 weeks we work with somebody, we go through a foundational phase. The foundational phase, we do not focus on calories at all.
Oh, interesting.
Like at all. We just focus on foundational habits. We don't even focus on like quantity of protein and fiber. We're like, hey, week 1, we are going to make sure we have a fistful size of protein at each of your meals. These are your options. Which ones do you like? So there's some flexibility, obviously, right? Next week, different habit. Next week, different habit. And what we've done is curated about a dozen habits that in the literature are associated with better hunger regulation, maintaining weight loss long-term, and just living a healthier lifestyle. And that's all we focus on. Dude, I can't tell you how many people drop 20 pounds just doing that. Right. And then it's like after that, we will now introduce the calorie tracking piece because, you know, like the habits will carry you so far, but then we really need to be objective about energy intake as well. But what I realized is using that approach, people actually focus on developing the habits. They have a much easier time maintaining long term as well.
Makes total sense. Briefly, before we move on, you were talking about how you prefer working with people who are like just starting out. And number one, I agree with that. It's funny because when I first got into coaching, I thought I wanted to work with just like high-level power lifters and people who just love this stuff. But as I've grown in the industry and as a coach, I love working with people who just are square one, starting from the beginning. And I think about it, you've been talking about effect size. One of the reasons I love coaching is because I love making a difference in people's lives. And I feel like the effect size for an individual who's at square one, doesn't know where to begin, confidence is very low. The effect size for that person, that person's family, that person's impact on themselves and the world is so much bigger with relatively basic changes compared to someone who's already super invested in fitness and then like, all right, I'm going to fix your squat technique just a little bit, or I'm just going to, the effect size is so much bigger with these more beginners.
Yeah. Two things here. Because one of the things that I get from people often, Jordan, is like, oh, I don't know if you might be the right person to help me because it seems like you only help beginners. I'm like, one, silly statement to say, but two, if you are struggling with your health and fitness, you probably need to focus on the basics. And here's the thing, man, you and I know this, coaching is not about telling people what to do. It's the reason why you and I give information out for free, right? Like you could watch all my content and know exactly what to do. It's really about having somebody by your side and helping you navigate the challenges and reframe the way that you're perceiving them so that you can stay consistent during those difficult times, because that's when people fall off, right? The second thing I was going to say is, you mentioned, I like working with beginners and I like working with people who have been struggling for a long time, but they feel motivated, like they still want to make a change.
Yes.
Because when they realize how simple it actually is, it's like, oh my God, wow. Right. You mentioned making an impact on clients' lives. And I'm going to share this story just because it was fairly recent. A client of ours, and I see this very often where people are very successful in other areas of life, but really struggle with health and fitness. This particular person is an executive at a company. He does really well financially. He has a beautiful family, has kids. I believe one of his kids is like around teenage years. And this person struggled for years, like slowly weight was creeping up. And the whole thing was like, they weren't really just focusing on their health at all, like focusing on my career, focusing on family. And he had mentioned to me that, at a certain point he started feeling uncomfortable, and he's like, oh, I'll just figure this out. Like I've figured out everything else. But when he started figuring out, this person had no knowledge about health and fitness, and his friends told him like, do keto, do fasting, this, that. And he started doing those things. And he was just like, dude, I was doing those things and I was gaining weight and I don't know what's going on. I'm like, yeah, because those things don't inherently cause weight loss, right? Anyways, we started working with this individual, and then we actually did a podcast interview together. And he was like, the coolest thing for me is that I've never really liked exercise and I look forward to it now. But beyond that, I'm working out at home and my son is asking me to work out with me.
That's the best.
He's like, dude, I would have never thought that would happen in a million years. And he's like, and not only that, his friend group at school is they're asking him about
awesome.
exercise because he's learning from dad.
That's the
And I'm like,
best.
when you can help a client realize that their healthy habits impact so much more than just how they feel about themselves, I think that's when you're like, it's going to stick, right? When he told me that, in my mind, like it just went on, like, oh, I know you got the bug. You're not going to stop.
Yeah.
And that's really cool.
I love that, dude. All right. I'm going to drop a bomb on you. You ready?
Oh, man.
You ready for this?
Sure.
All right. As a PhD in nutrition science, why do you say that organic food is a scam?
Okay. Good question. That's not that big of a bomb, man.
This is organic gets a lot of shit on social media. And as soon as you bring this up, the comment section we're going to clip this. This is absolutely going to be a clip.
Okay.
The comments is going to be a shit show.
Okay.
Just so for everyone, I know the comments are going to be a shit show.
Organic food is a marketing term.
Okay.
At best.
Explain that.
Actually, when organic standards were being developed, I forget who it was, a particular person in I think it was
Dan Glickman.
Correct. Yes. Had mentioned that the term organic foods doesn't necessarily say anything about the nutritional quality of the food or the safety of the food, right? And it's just very clear that organic foods, and so let's preface, when I say organic foods are shit, I don't mean they're actually shit. I mean, they're not substantially better than conventionally raised food, right? So that's one thing. If we look at it from a nutritional profile, some organic foods may have slightly higher concentration of particular nutrients because of the nutrient profile of the soil, for example, versus like conventionally raised foods. But it's a very slight difference. And then on top of that, it's not the fact that you need your apple to have a little bit more of whatever vitamin or mineral. It's that people aren't eating enough fruits, right? So we tend to hyperfixate on this whole organic thing, thinking it's more nutritious. It really isn't objectively. Like you can look at the stats of the nutritional density of organic versus non-organic.
Most people say it's because of safety. That's
Sure.
what,
The second thing is like, again, these questions are hard to answer because some people believe certain things. And if you believe certain things, it is what it is, right? Like some people believe that the research on this stuff is fudged. I have seen no evidence that the research is fudged. Okay. And I see this as an insider who understands how research is conducted, funded, published, all that stuff. The whole idea that the government just like gives money to research and pays researchers to publish certain things and say certain things and fudge data, it's not true. At least I have seen zero evidence of that.
it's also just a convenient way to try and just confirm your own bias. Well, I'm not going to believe that research because that one's fudged.
Correct.
But then they'll also be all about research on something else.
Yes,
that
yes,
confirms their
yes,
bias.
yes.
Like that research I don't like because it disagrees with me.
Yeah. Yeah. But here people talk about like the use of pesticides, for example, and organic foods, they use pesticides. They're just organic pesticides, right? In terms of safety data between organic pesticides and non-organic pesticides, I'm not really sure on the distinction. From my understanding, there's not really a big difference at all in terms of safety data. And again, I always like to be nuanced when I talk about these topics because I like to stay within my lane and share with people when it's an opinion or I'm really stepping outside of like what I really feel comfortable talking about. Not that I don't feel comfortable talking about it, but like people spend their lives studying the safety of different pesticides, for example, and like really understand the nuance of how it affects you physiologically, for example. I don't, right? I just know that overall, based off the research that we have available, there's nothing to show that like organic foods are substantially safer than non-organic foods. And then we also see in the research literature, when we look at the correlation between health-related outcomes and particular dietary patterns, there's no difference between people that consume more organic food or not. It's really about the basic dietary patterns, right? And then the other aspect of this that has to do nothing with safety or nutritional value is when we talk about people trying to optimize or improve their health, and there's so many levers you can pull. and we want to ideally pull the levers that give us the biggest return on our investment, being our time and effort initially, just like eating more organic food is at the bottom of the totem pole, right? Here's the thing. If you're already having a healthy diet, if you're already eating sufficient protein and fiber, you already eat whole foods, you exercise, you sleep well, you manage stress, you want to focus on organic, sure, right? But the person like who doesn't have those bases covered, focusing on organic is going to do nothing, right? And the thing is, you could have very unhealthy foods that are organic as well. And I say quote unquote unhealthy. I don't think anything is inherently unhealthy either, because dose matters. But you'll see people who are like, man, I'm eating all organic food and I'm not like losing any weight or feeling any better. It's like, yeah, because that's not the thing that's really going to get you there.
Yeah. It's I want to read a couple of things. So I took the quote from Dan Glickman, Secretary of Agriculture, when these organic guidelines were being introduced in like 2000. And you brought this up in one of your pieces of content. And the actual quote from Dan Glickman, Secretary of Agriculture, said, quote, "The organic label is no more than a marketing tool, and it's a cynical one because so many unsuspecting consumers are ripped off by the high prices of organic products without palpable benefit." This is from the Secretary of Agriculture as these guidelines are being put into place. And I really want to focus on the safety of it, because this is whenever I talk about it, people are like, I don't care about the extra nutrients. I don't care about that. It's for the safety. And this is where people are being misled. And I have a couple of stories. The first one is, you're right in that for organic foods, in which they're using pesticides, they're using organic pesticides. Just because it's organic doesn't mean that it's safer. Doesn't any of that. And I will say, so for example, there was an organic pesticide that was being used. It's called rotenone. It has been discontinued because of the serious negative health consequences as a result of it. And I think it was discontinued either 2017 or 2019, not that long ago. So all these people who are buying organic thinking that, oh, this is safer, well, they also they're learning as they're doing it. And that was a wildly dangerous organic pesticide that had to be discontinued because of the negative health effects. The other thing is, and this is something that I was shocked when because I was talking about organic, and I've had a number of people reach out to me. I have a pretty substantial size audience, so people follow me from every industry. A number of different people have reached out to me saying that their job is to spray pesticides on crops. That's what they do. And they asked me not to name them, so I don't ever name them. But different people from different pesticide companies reached out and said on numerous occasions, they have been called by organic farms to come spray pesticides at like 2 or 3 in the morning so that no one is watching, because they just can't get rid of the bugs. They can't get rid of the things that are destroying the crops. So even if you're buying organic, doesn't necessarily mean that someone who's owning that company, owning this food, isn't sometimes using things that they're saying they're not using. And a lot of the people who are really focused on organic are, they're often more conspiratorial, which I have my own conspiracy theories. That's fine. But if they're not going to believe the research, great. But also you should be wary of the people who are selling you these foods at a massive profit and being like, okay, well, how do you know that they're actually using organic pesticides if you believe those are safer for you? How do you know that? And I know for a fact, I've had a number of these pesticide companies reach out and say, please don't name me, but I've been called and been paid double so they can do it at 2 or 3 in the morning when no one's watching.
And then on top of that is, if you are worried about pesticide and herbicides and you want to limit your exposure to them, I mean, this stuff is on the surface of food, primarily produce. Just wash your food well, right? I
never
don't want to quote. I don't. Most of the time, but I don't want to quote specific percentages. But I believe it's if you wash your food with like soap or baking soda and water, and like you rinse it for a good 5 to 10 minutes, it removes. I think it's like 95 to 98% of all the chemical residue on the actual food. So it's like, you can do that, right? You could do that, and it's going to be, it's like measurably better in terms of like reducing the quantity of your consumption of those things.
Yeah, makes total sense. And sort of on a similar topic, but also a separate bomb to drop on.
Okay.
Is drinking diet soda as dangerous as drinking alcohol?
No, it's not as dangerous. No, here it's another thing, man. It's like it's at the bottom of the totem pole, and I think everything has pros and cons. How we were talking about earlier, the research is pretty clear on this too. That the use of beverages that have non-nutritive sweeteners, which diet soda falls into that classification,
like aspartame, for example,
helps with hunger and satiety regulation. I shouldn't say hunger and satiety regulation, but helps people maintain a lower caloric intake consistently and helps people maintain weight loss. This is going to, for people that haven't heard this before, this might sound a little bit mind-blowing, but the data on this is very clear. Compared to water, people who consume diet soda or beverages with non-nutritive sweeteners do better at long-term weight loss maintenance. Simply because they probably have a little bit more flexibility. They're okay having some of these things. It helps crave cravings for sweet foods. I know oftentimes, man, like I want something sweet, just have a diet soda. Not that big of a deal, right? And it curbs that craving. It's 0 calories and it helps you maintain your weight loss. And again, if we're talking about effect sizes for somebody who was or is overweight, reducing weight and maintaining your weight is going to have a much bigger impact on your health than whether a particular sweetener may or may not have negative health outcomes. I say may or may not because this stuff is all a little bit muddy. We know based off safety data, like how much aspartame you'd have to consume to have an objective negative impact on your health is like very
astronomical.
High. Yeah.
It's astronomical.
Like 80 to like 100 sodas or something like that.
Crazy.
In a sitting.
A day.
Yeah.
For a long time.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
But also that data, if I'm going to be as like objective as possible, is not in humans either.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, all right, we can extrapolate some stuff there. But the point is that like, it just isn't as bad as people say it is. Because if people actually understood how much aspartame is in a diet soda, it's like so little.
Yeah.
And we know based off like, dude, there are people that have been drinking diet soda for freaking ever. And it's like, they would have dropped dead.
Yeah.
Know?
I mean, I don't even use that just because, there are people who've been smoking forever. And like for me,
Sure.
you know what I mean?
Sure.
I'm very focused on the data with this.
Yes.
And I will say I'm always open. Like if it comes out, hey, by the way, aspartame is going to give you cancer, I'll be like, hey, I was wrong. Like research just come out. This is like, it's showing, but we have a pretty substantial amount of data that in order to have a legitimate negative effect on your health, you'd have to drink an absolute, you'd probably die of overhydration before you would die from any negative effects as a result of the aspartame.
Yeah.
Whereas, and by the way, like I drink alcohol. I don't drink a ton. Actually, especially since I started tirzepatide like well over a year and a half ago, my alcohol consumption has gone down dramatically, but I do drink it. But also objectively, it's fucking horrible for you.
What's your go-to? Some bourbon?
You know what's funny? It really depends on the season.
Okay.
Right? So during the summer, I love just like a cold beer.
Yeah.
I love a cold, and something, whether it's like a Corona with lime, or I love that during the hot season.
That's cultural appropriation, bro. I'm allowed to drink Corona with lime. You're not.
Oh, man. Do you love Corona?
I like Corona, yeah.
Okay. During winter, I actually really like a Guinness.
Yeah.
I'm a huge, I just love Guinness. And then also sometimes I typically don't have something like a bourbon by myself.
Sure.
I'm usually going to have that if I'm with someone who, not just someone to drink, but someone who really appreciates bourbon, because then they can teach me about it.
Yeah.
I'm not as educated on it. So I like Mitch, for example. Which one was the one from Scotland? Oban. Yeah. So Mitch, do you drink it as much anymore or not as much? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Mitch loves that stuff. So it was nice to like have someone who's very passionate about it.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, for me, it's very much based on the season.
Yeah.
What about you?
I like bourbon. And in the summer, I like a margarita.
Oh,
I thought when you said it depends on who I'm with, I thought you were going to say when I'm with somebody who's a bad influence. But jokes aside, bring it back to what you were saying, like, because you compared diet soda to alcohol. I think that the comparison there is like so different, right? Like alcohol is, even a sip is like just way worse objectively. But then people say things like, if you're going to have a diet soda, might as well just have the normal thing. No. It's very different as well. Like I would take a diet soda all day, every day.
Yeah.
Before I drink a normal soda.
Yeah.
Dude, I will go to an all-you-can-eat spot and stuff my face, partially because I really love food, before I drink normal soda. I just like, if there's one thing, I'm not big on restriction at all. I'm not big on telling people good food, bad food. But if there's one thing I would say, try your best to absolutely cut out of your diet, it's just sugary drinks.
Yeah.
It's like no benefit nutritionally, no benefit for hunger and satiety regulation. Tastes good. Just have the diet version.
The only time, because I try and think there has to be situations which I'd be okay with a sugary drink. The only time that I can think of in this moment, aside from a medical emergency, would be like some type of an athlete.
Sure. Yeah.
But even then, I'm not saying get a Coke.
Yeah.
It's like some type of a Gatorade, Powerade, something like that. Yeah.
Context matters for sure.
Of course.
But in general, like, dude, I have family members who like their diet is healthy, no different than mine.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is they have sugary drinks all day.
Yeah.
Starbucks, full sugar Gatorade,
Starbucks
full sugar soda, and they struggle substantially more with their weight.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you could just make that one shift, right? If we talk about, again, levers that make a big difference, cutting out sugary beverages, I think is like very much at the top.
Oh, dude, 100%. Especially if we're looking at effect size in the population as a whole, it's just not even close. The impact it would make on our overall health as a society to stop having these sugary drinks on a regular basis is wild. I was just laughing when you said Starbucks because my wife loves Starbucks. I'm not the biggest fan, but there is one drink that she gets that is honestly delicious.
What is?
So it's funny. Yesterday, we were going to a doctor's appointment, and for her because she's almost in her third trimester, and we were on our way, and she was like, "Hey, I really want to go get Starbucks," and she has this drink. And every time she gets it for me, I hate to admit that it's delicious. And I forgot the name. And so we pulled into Starbucks. She was like, "What do you want me to get?" And I was like, "Fuck, what's the name? What's the name?" And I was like, "Just get me that skinny bitch, and because the drink is called a skinny iced vanilla latte. And I said, "Just get me the skinny bitch." And she died laughing because I forgot the name. So that's just now it's going to be in our vernacular. Just get me the skinny bitch. It's ridiculously good.
Yeah.
I don't know what's in it, or I think so. I get almond milk because I'm violently lactose intolerant.
Okay.
And like if I have regular milk, it's not good.
You can lose weight, dude.
But they use this like sugar-free vanilla syrup and almond milk, and it's just delicious. It's so good.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of their drinks are tasty.
Yeah.
I don't think they're good coffee drinks. I'm a big coffee fan, and I like I grind my coffee fresh every morning and try to get like freshly roasted coffee. But objectively, did it taste amazing? Yeah.
Yeah.
You just can't be drinking that all day.
Yeah, it's like having cheesecake. It's so good.
It's like grabbing cheesecake, putting it in a blender with some water, and saying
yes,
it's a drink.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What's your favorite kind of coffee?
Just straight up espresso.
But
like a nice medium roast.
Where do you get the beans from?
So I've been getting them from the supermarket, but I make sure
you say that
I make
you're
sure,
so disappointed in yourself.
I am disappointed, man, because a coffee lover would be disappointed. But I make sure it's been roasted in the past like 30 days.
Okay.
But I really like medium roasts.
Okay.
I like just straight black espresso. And if I ever make a coffee drink, it's a cortado.
Oh, okay,
with
nice.
A little bit of honey.
I love cortado.
Yeah.
That's legit. A lot of people don't know about the cortado. I like that.
I like it because it's not too much milk. It's technically 2 ounces coffee, 2 ounces of milk.
Yeah.
It's nice and creamy.
Have you ever had Turkish coffee?
I haven't.
You haven't had Turkish coffee?
But this is so nerdy, dude. One of the things that I've been most excited about recently was my new coffee grinder.
Okay.
And do you know what the difference is between like an espresso grind and a Turkish coffee grind and French press?
I definitely couldn't explain it.
So the only difference, like when you buy espresso coffee beans, there is no espresso coffee. It's the same coffee bean. It's just how fine it's ground.
Okay.
Right. And so for espresso, you need it to be ground like very fine because you need to pressurize it. Whereas like a drip coffee is much coarser. Turkish coffee is like the finest grind possible. And so you can't grind coffee fine enough to make Turkish coffee unless you have like a pretty nice grinder. So I got a pretty nice grinder. I just haven't tried it.
Dude. All right. I'm going to send you my favorite Turkish coffee.
Okay.
It's got, it has cardamom in it.
Okay.
And it's just, oh my gosh, dude. It's so good. And I'm assuming you're not super caffeine sensitive.
Not at all.
You had like 3 coffees
Not
before this. So it's not going to wreck you. But for anyone listening, if you are caffeine sensitive, don't have a lot because this will it'll jack you up. It's it's my favorite pre-workout. So I completely agree with you on this. And I know a lot of people get upset with me when I talk about it. So I want to talk about it. You said, and I quote, "This is an unpopular opinion, but we are way too obsessed with protein."
Yeah.
I was so glad that you said this. So why? Why do you think we're too obsessed with protein?
Because protein has almost just become like a marketing thing, man.
Yeah.
It's like every single food has a high protein version and they just charge like another $3 or $4 and it has like another 10 grams of protein. You know, you're talking about Starbucks. They have their like high protein coffee now.
Yes.
And it's like, guys, listen, is protein important? Yes. Right. Are most people protein deficient? No. Do most people consume optimal amounts of protein? Also no. Right. So I don't think it's overrated or we're too obsessed in the sense like we eat way too much of it. But also like, you know, we talk about health a lot, and it's like, are we trying to promote healthy dietary habits and encourage people to eat protein from whole foods and stuff like that? I would say that's the better choice than just eating a bunch of snack-based food that is still highly processed, that still doesn't do much to keep you full. Because here's the thing, when people talk about like this, I talk a lot about satiety and hunger regulation because I think it's a really important variable to help you manage your food intake. And people talk about like protein is the most satiating macronutrient. It technically is. And fiber's right up there, right? But also the way you get your protein is important too. Like if you just get a protein shake, it's not really that satiating because we digest liquid incredibly fast. And most of the protein in protein powders are pre-digested anyways, right? The same way as if you get like a pastry that has 10 grams of protein, it's just marketing. That's my issue with it. And then on top of that, it's like anytime I talk to somebody who tells me they're trying to lose weight or whatever, and I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, I'm eating more protein. I'm like, what else? It's like everybody knows how important protein is, but it's just like way too much. And then you talk, there's a lot of big names, even in our industry, who are well respected, who just talk about protein. Your diet needs to be centered around protein. It's like, I disagree with the fact that your diet needs to be centered around protein. I think your diet needs to be centered around whole foods. And protein needs to be part of that.
That's a great distinction.
But I wouldn't say your plate, from my perspective, if I hear somebody say protein needs to be the main thing, your diet needs to be centered around protein. It's like if I look at a plate, the majority of it should be protein. I disagree with that.
Agree.
I think about maybe a quarter to a third of your plate should be protein. A quarter or a third of your plate should be some vegetables or some high fiber something, right? And then some starchy carbohydrates ideally.
And a little bit of fat.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously there's variation there. We have fruits, we have dairy, we have all that good stuff. But it's like, I don't think the absolute main thing you need to focus on is protein and always just focus on eating more protein. Dude, I'll have clients that, you know, are like, man, I can't get enough protein. And when you look at their protein intake, it's like, it's already sufficient.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? It's like, I'm at 180 grams. I need to get to 200 grams. Why? Because I need to get a gram per pound of body weight. And they're like 25% body fat.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you don't need that much protein. And also eating more protein is not going to make you feel way fuller either. Right? I personally think like having some fruits and veggies helps you feel way more satiated than a steak.
100%. Yes.
So those are some of the main reasons that it kind of bothers me.
Dude, I'm with you. And I'm so glad that you said it because I don't see enough people talking about it. And I feel like it's absolutely marketing. It's just everywhere you go, which on one hand is good because I think protein was under discussed. But I think the pendulum has swung now where now it's like it's the thing everyone talks about.
And also talking about the marketing thing.
Yeah.
It's like there are very cheap sources of protein that are snacks.
Yeah.
Like a cheese stick.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or a little bit of beef jerky or some yogurt. You don't have to pay $5 for a high protein pastry.
Correct.
You can get way more protein from cheaper sources as well. And again, listen, the financial piece is a completely separate topic because some people can afford it. It's convenient. They want it, whatever. But you don't see mozzarella cheese sticks being marketed as a protein snack. Maybe they should.
Yeah, dude, let's do it. Let's make our own mozzarella cheese stick.
I'm down. I eat a lot of those with my kids.
Dude, they're so good. They're so good.
Especially when they're room temperature.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what I like is the Baby Bell cheeses.
Yes.
Bro.
Yeah.
I like making quesadillas with those. More cultural appropriation. They're so good. And they're like if you get like the essentially like zero fat one or like super low fat one, it's ridiculously high protein and very filling.
They don't melt well though.
They don't melt well. You're right.
You need the fat.
But you've got to if you heat it up for a while.
You just don't let it get cold. Just scarf it down.
Yes, that's exactly right.
What are you doing? Don't. It's getting cold. That's funny.
But yeah, I just agree with everything you said in regard to protein. The other thing, and this is going back to understanding calories and portion size, I've seen a lot of people say I'm not getting enough protein. And when they show me, like for a client, I'll be like, send me a picture of what you're eating. And I'll be like, that's a huge amount of protein. And I'm like, did you weigh and measure that? And they're like, no. I'm like, and when they start weighing and measuring, what they thought was 3 ounces of chicken was actually like 12 or 15 ounces. I'm like, that's a huge fucking
12 to 15. Yeah, underreporting is massive.
Massive. So it's like, no, you're actually getting plenty, but you just think you're not eating enough because you're eyeballing it.
I think underreporting is an issue. And then 2, only counting protein from animal-based sources.
Yes.
Because like, listen, rice, veggies, fruit, is there a lot of protein? Of course not. But like if you have a serving of rice, you're probably getting 3-5 grams of protein.
And
so
beans and
yeah,
all
you're
that.
probably getting another 5 to 10 grams with each of your meals if you're having a well-balanced meal. That could add up, 25, 30,
Massively.
40 grams. Yeah, exactly.
Massively.
People don't count that. They're just like, did I get my 8 ounces of chicken?
Yeah.
It's like, good, count that, but also keep in mind that, like, guys, if you're having 3 meals, a snack or two, each of your meals has like a third of your plate is like protein. You're getting enough protein.
Yeah. And I think you're saying, are we massively under eating protein as in the American culture and society? No. Generally, the biggest issue is fiber. Over 90% of United States adults are not eating enough fiber. They're not getting anywhere close to the amount of fruits and vegetables. I would say if you are a competitive bodybuilder and physique athlete, maybe you've really got to be much more strict with it and get higher levels. But those people probably aren't even listening to this podcast because that's not me at all. Yeah. For people who just want to live longer, hopefully, God willing, who want to feel better, move better, be more athletic, be healthy, like fiber is really that. Like I want to get the pendulum to swing to fiber. If we can get to a point in a couple of years or in years to be like, all right, guys, now fiber is being way overhyped, I'll be happy that we did our job. But for right now, fiber is massively undereaten. And going back to your point around protein, where you're getting it from, listen, I don't think there's anything wrong with some fiber supplements, but I'd rather you get it from Whole Foods. If you want to include a fiber supplement, but then I see some people being like, I'm getting my fiber from these like fiber gummies. I'm like, motherfucker, that's not where all the benefits come from. The benefits are mainly going to come from eating in a whole food sources, not from having a fiber 1 spoonful. Or if you want to have psyllium husk, great, I'll have psyllium husk. But it's like the main benefits come from the whole food sources consistently throughout the day.
Yeah, and I don't want to discourage people from the supplements either because they can be beneficial, but you just get so much more from whole food.
Yeah.
It's like vitamins, minerals. People often talk about this like, why not just pop a multivitamin? It's like, pop the multivitamin,
Go for
sure.
it.
But also, we only classify vitamins as like the particular compounds in fruits that we have identified that are vital to life. Right? That's where the name vitamins come from. Like, you need to consume them. But there are so many. I mean, this is what I did my PhD on. Literally thousands, hundreds of thousands of compounds in fruits and vegetables and plant-based foods in general, and animal-based foods to a lower extent, but like that have health-promoting impacts. You don't get those in a multivitamin. You just don't. So it's really about like the food matrix, right? You get a lot when you eat an apple or spinach that you're not getting just from a multivitamin.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I want to bring this up. We might disagree on it.
Okay.
Solely based off of what I've seen you post about it, but I'm sure there's more nuance. What are your thoughts on electrolyte supplements?
Okay. I think for the vast majority of people, unnecessary.
Okay, we agree.
I will say I use them, and I made a reel not too long ago, and I was like, I drink them because I like the taste. For the most part, I do drink them because I like the taste. And I have found that they can help me with exercise performance slightly if I'm underhydrated. But here's the part that bothers me. Again, it comes down to like the marketing claims, right? X amount more hydrating than water. It's like objectively not really, depending on the context again. If you're eating food, you're probably getting sufficient electrolytes for the vast majority of people. And there's also the other aspect of particular electrolyte supplements that are just like no sugar because sugar's really bad. And we should consume X amount of salt. Well, like the sugar actually helps with the hydrating impacts of the electrolytes. So the formulation is an issue as well. I think if you are an athlete, you're doing a lot of exercise, you sweat a ton. Maybe you're doing some strength training and you're doing some cardio. Maybe you're a larger person who tends to sweat a lot, or you live in a very tropical climate like I do. Yeah, they can be beneficial for sure. It's just like people are just, the electrolytes help me. It's like you're barely even exercising or sweating. So in those contexts, I don't think they're that beneficial.
We completely agree then. Yeah. My issue, I see a lot of people being duped by it, by like, oh, I just need to have this so I'm better hydrated. And they're drinking like 3 packets a day. I'm like, bro, that's fucking crazy.
And most people consume way more salt than they already need.
Yeah. And I agree. Like if you're it's funny. Like if you're an athlete who's like, I love baseball, but like if you're a baseball player and you're not moving very much, maybe if you're out in the heat and you're sweating a lot, could be worth it. But like if you're in like an air conditioned stadium and you're not really sweating that much, like probably not necessary. Or I will say whether it's an athlete who's running and sweating a lot, someone who works hard labor, someone who lives in a very hot environment and just generally sweating a lot. Also, sometimes and always consult with your doctor, but pregnancy or breastfeeding, sometimes it can be very helpful as well. There are instances, but for the vast majority, especially of Americans who are overweight, eating too much salt, have high blood pressure, it's just like, yo, you're getting 2,000 steps a day. Why the fuck are you having electrolytes?
Yeah. Yeah. I have noticed they used to help me a ton with cramping because I used to really struggle with cramping when I lifted. But it was because I was lifting earlier in the morning. I wasn't hydrating well, and I wasn't eating much either. Right, so I just used an electrolyte supplement to kind of circumvent the fact that I wasn't like physiologically prepared to train the way that I should have. But now that I train a little bit later and I have a well-balanced breakfast, and I've been intentionally drinking more water, I don't really need it. I don't cramp up nearly as much. Yeah.
Makes sense. Awesome. That clarifies that. All right.
I wanted to ask you a question. I know this is an interview about me.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do it. Ask me anything you want.
I've realized now a couple times. So I grew up like religion is not part of my upbringing by any means.
Yeah.
Specifically because my family is from Cuba, and like during the time they were growing up, like with the whole communist regime and everything like that, it was a very like anti-religious movement as well.
Yep.
And so that's not something I've ever grown up with.
Okay.
Right. Almost to the extent where I used to think that religion was something not just stupid, but like bad.
Right? A lot of people think that.
Yeah.
And there's an argument to be made for it. I get it.
Sure. But I don't really think so.
Yeah.
Anyways, since being with my wife, we've been together now for 11 years. She was raised Catholic, and I've seen how positive it is in her life. And you've mentioned now multiple times, God willing, right? When you say like, hopefully this person lives a long time, God willing.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, how big of an impact do you feel like spirituality plays in your health specifically?
Man, that's a great question. It's a loaded question. No one's asked me that. I'm glad that you did. Listen, I'll start with just the science-based side of it. I think the data is pretty clear that generally speaking, people often live longer and are healthier when they have some form of a relationship with God. And obviously, then we're going to have a bunch of arguments being like, I'm living healthy and fine, and I don't believe it. That's amazing. But typically what I've found is that people, and when you look at the research, people who have a relationship with God typically have a longer, healthier lives, and not just in the US, but globally. This is a really wonderful question. I would say in some ways, I think it really helps. And in other ways that are a personal issue, it might be more challenging, and I'll explain. In the ways that I think it helps is it allows me to, I'll give you an aspect from Judaism. In Judaism, we don't believe that like we are our body, like we are a soul and we have a body, which is not just for Jews. Like we believe this about everyone. Like you are a soul, which for me is a nice way of, if I'm ever having a disagreement with someone or whatever, I don't wish ill on anyone. And I'm trying to treat everyone like they're a soul, and the soul is pure and they just have a body. And so for me, it's like my job and my responsibility to take care of this body, which is a gift to me from God. So I think in that sense, it can be a wonderful thing from a physical health perspective. I think in my own personal struggles, sometimes I think it can create anxiety, right? Like this, am I doing the right things? Is it enough? Which I think we all struggle with in some way, shape, or form. But just personally for me, sometimes I get anxious around, am I doing what is right? Am I living up to the standard that I should be living to? Which in some ways it's good because it can point me, I think, in the right direction, where if I ever am unsure of what's the right move, I can sort of rely on, okay, well, what do I think God wants me to do in this moment? But in other instances, it can create more anxiety for me, which objectively, chronic anxiety is not good for you, right? So I think there are pros and cons to it. But yeah, I don't know if that answered the question at all.
No, definitely. It's something I love talking about this topic because I have such an outsider's perspective on it.
Okay.
Where like, not only did I not grow up religious, like nobody I really knew grew up religious. Right? So, and I think my perspective on this has shifted tremendously over the past decade. To where initially, and I think, you mature as you age as well, and you realize there are so many things that are outside of our control or like we're really unable to explain. I used to believe like, no chance, no way in hell, none of this exists, right? Like, If I can't see it, it's not real. But then you start to learn even about like the scientific explanation of the Big Bang and stuff like that. Like, well, that doesn't really make much sense. And so I think I've landed at a point where it's like, I entertain the possibility that, one, I feel 100% certain that we don't know what the hell is anything. Like really, right? Because even when you think about like this table is technically 90% empty space, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
Right. So perception is really how we view the world, and like how can we really explain the world outside of our perception, and how can we be so like full of ourselves as humans to think that we have the capacity to really understand how the universe is made or whatnot, right? But then the other aspect of me is like, despite that, I am open to entertain the possibility that there is more out there, or potentially there is a God or a creator. You know, we use the word God, but like, what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
But then I feel so like, I can't pick a religion simply because, for example, when my wife and I were first dating and we were talking about getting engaged and getting married, she was like, listen, I would never ask you to do this, but my family would love if you converted to Catholicism. And I was like, listen, if your family wouldn't want that unless I really believed it. And like, to me, the stories that come with certain religions are just really hard to believe because I've never grown up with that, right?
Yeah,
So I'm like,
of course.
Listen, is there a creator? Potentially. Do I think we have all the answers? No. Do I think a person split the sea? I don't know. It's hard for me to just say like, I believe that, right? So even if I wanted to be potentially a little bit more religious or spiritual, I feel so like I don't have a home.
Dude, I love that you're talking about this. I think it's really important. Do you go to church or no?
Yes, but primarily to support my wife.
I love
to
that.
me, I hate saying this, but it doesn't mean anything. Like when I'm there, I'm like, God, I'm bored.
Yeah.
But I do it for her.
It's funny that you're talking
for her.
about
It's very
it.
important. Yeah.
Got him.
Yeah.
Have there ever been any stories or parables or anything that are told there that mean something to you that you found value in?
I think all the lessons are fantastic.
Yeah.
But I also consider myself, maybe again, this is me being conceited, but I consider myself an ethical person.
Yeah.
Right. And I consider myself a moral person. And I also don't understand why some people need religion to be moral or ethical. I feel like those are just innate traits in myself. So when I go there and I pay attention, and I say that because the kids are crazy when we go there, but if I'm able to pay some attention, listen to them, like, these are all really fantastic lessons. I just don't believe necessarily in the stories that are used to tell those lessons. Right. And I understand that stories are a great way for people to understand lessons as well. I just have a hard time saying like, yes, I believe that wholeheartedly. And I've talked to my wife a lot about this a lot, because I know a lot of people that are religious struggle with that level of belief as well. And my wife's perspective is that, well, belief is a choice. You choose to believe in something, right? She's like, I could choose to not believe in it, but in my heart, I choose to believe that all this stuff is real, because for her, it makes her feel more at ease knowing that after you pass away, there's a place you go, you can look over your kids. Like, that's really what is very powerful for her. And she tells me that, and I believe her. For her, it's a choice.
Yeah.
And I tell her, this is like some of the, not disagreements, but like a heated conversation that we have. I'm like, I don't think I have the capacity to choose to believe something just blindly.
Yeah. Dude, listen, I can't speak about any other religion except Judaism.
Sure.
What I can say is one of the essential components of Judaism is argument and debate. We're never, ever just saying you should believe this. In fact, there are literal laws and traditions within Judaism in which you literally are required to debate around certain things. It's never like you have to believe X, Y, or Z. That's just not how it works.
Yeah.
Ironically, I'm sure there'll be some Jews who'll be like, that's wrong, and we'll debate about it. But like, for example, in Jewish study, you have a debate partner where you'll read a section, and it's not like, hey, this is what we believe. It's like, what do you believe? What do I believe? Let's debate about it. And there's among Jews, it's like you get 5 different Jews in a room, you're going to have 50 different opinions. What I will say is, you say you are a moral and ethical person. Have you ever done anything immoral or unethical? Okay.
Of course.
And you talk about how stories can be very powerful, right? Would you say that lying is immoral or unethical?
My personal belief is
Yes.
that it depends on the circumstance.
So I agree with that completely. what you described near the beginning of this episode was a story that you tell your son when he doesn't want to eat food. You tell him that, look, I'm going to eat this, and because of this food, I am now able to do this push-up, when you know very well it wasn't the food that caused you to do that. You're a great dad. Because you are a great dad because of that, right? I think that was the right choice.
Sure.
I think that, and again, I can't speak to any other religion. I can't. And I can't speak for every Jew. I can only speak for me and for what I've learned. And there's so much about Judaism I don't know and I don't understand and I question. I think that for me, part of being a good Jew and a good human is questioning. I think that, in my opinion, should be part of religion. And especially for those of us who are more science-minded, who are looking for the causes and the effects and looking for the proof and the data, I don't think that they're mutually exclusive. And I think it's your duty and responsibility to look for proof and to look for evidence. And just because you might not be fully convinced of a certain story that you've been told also doesn't mean that you can't derive benefit from that story.
Sure.
Right? So religion is going to be different to everyone. And you have even people of the same religious group disagree all the time.
Yeah.
Right? All the time. And just because someone is, they say they're religious doesn't mean they're a good, moral, ethical person.
Of course.
And just because someone isn't religious doesn't mean they're not a good, moral, ethical person. And again, I can't speak for other religions because I know, like, I've been told that I'm not going to heaven because I don't believe in someone else's God. I've been told that. Like, I obviously disagree. So one of the things I personally love about Judaism is we don't believe that you have to be a Jew in order to go to heaven. We don't even really talk about heaven that much. It's we view our job here on earth is to bring heaven to earth. That's like to make our time here to bring God's goodness, God's heaven here, not doing certain things here so we get to there. That's just how we view it. But if you ask, like, do I ever question it or like question every day?
Yeah.
It's an eternal struggle. Like, is this story real? Is this accurate? Was there a deeper meaning behind why this story is told this way? I question stuff every day.
So let me ask, and this is where I struggle with some of this stuff because I believe, like, let's say there's a creator or there's something beyond us, that it's universal, right? Or at least potentially universal, meaning that, like, we all come from the same place, right? But then there's the human construct of it that there are like 1,000 different religions with slight minor tweaks in the stories that are being told, right? And it's like where I struggle is not in the belief that there is a God, a creator, something more than us, but the belief in a particular set of stories and wrapping your identity around a particular religion, right? And I guess the question is, like, why do you feel strongly that you are a Jew versus a religious person? How do you feel strongly that you are Catholic and that everything else is wrong? Because that's what I talk to my wife about. And I'm like, I get the belief in God. I get all the benefits that you get from a religion. But why do you believe so strongly in these set of rules and this storyline? And you see other religious people who benefit tremendously from their religion and they believe so strongly in their religion that doesn't give you, like, maybe there is an ounce of doubt, but just like for me, if there's an ounce of doubt, it's all doubt. So it's like, I have a hard time understanding, conceptualizing how somebody identifies with a particular set of rules or stories or whatever, those guardrails are with a particular religion.
Man, it's a great question. And again, I can only speak for me within my knowledge and lifestyle of Judaism. The way that I look at Judaism is I actually don't look at Judaism as a religion as much as I look at it as a people. You can literally find, we have blood markers that say we are Jewish. Being Jewish means you are from Judea. You are from Yehudia. That's where we come from, which is, if people are going to get real political here, but it's like that's literally in our blood. You can find that that's where our ancestors come from. We are a people, first and foremost. And as a people, we feel like we were given these laws and commandments to follow. I will say, even extrapolating to other religions, whether it's Christianity, whether it's Islam, whether it's Hinduism, Buddhism, typically we find we all have more or less the same rules
Yeah.
in terms of being a good person, not killing, not stealing, respecting and honoring your parents, and even that we could talk about in terms of like, because I just heard this amazing. She's not a rabbi, but she's a Jewish scholar. She was talking about what does that actually mean, especially if you have a strained relationship with your parents. Maybe your parents weren't, or one of your parents wasn't a good person. What does that mean to honor and respect them? There's so much to discuss here, but that's where we get into morals and ethics. And I'm actually reading an amazing book right now. It's by Jonathan Haidt. I'm going to forget the name. 1 sec. Let me just pull it up real quick because I've spoken about it on the podcast. It's have you read this book from Jonathan Haidt? It's
I literally only read science or business stuff.
okay, so it's really good. It's called The Righteous Mind: Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion.
Okay.
You should, if you're interested in this stuff, it's a great book.
I love audiobooks.
This is an audiobook. It talks about a lot, but it talks about how morals and ethics are created in our own mind. It's one of the reasons why I struggle to just call myself a moral or ethical person, because it's like based on who and what. And the religious person would say, well, it's based on what God told us. And then from there, it's like, okay, well, every single one of us has done immoral and unethical things. So at what point do you decide if you're moral or ethical? Because you followed it today? Or what about yesterday? Or for how many years? So I don't know if I'm answering your question or not, but for me, you said if you have one bit of doubt, then it throws the whole thing into question. I would say if you have one bit of doubt, that just means it's worth exploring, worth asking questions about, worth it. In the same, let's say someone said, "Hey, if you said how confident are you in your ability to achieve your fitness goal to lose weight," and someone was like 70%, you wouldn't say, "Oh, you've got a lot of doubt, so you shouldn't try at all." You'd say, like, "Let's discuss it. Let's figure out where this doubt is coming from." And I would say, I'll have the audacity to say from a Jewish perspective, if you have doubt, that doesn't mean it, even if you don't believe in a certain story, in its validity or its happening, that doesn't mean you can't derive benefit from it. And that doesn't mean you're a worse person because of it. It just means maybe you don't necessarily believe in the historical truth of this, which is totally fine. But let's discuss it.
I love having these discussions. Yeah. When I say I have an inkling of truth, I would say that like I'm a very curious person.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of these quote unquote deep conversations about religion with a number of people. My wife's cousin's husband is a pastor.
Oh, amazing.
And I've talked to him about this like multiple times. And what I like about him is that he just like is actually open to hearing you out and hearing your concerns.
That's important. I love that.
But when I talk to him and I'm just like, dude, like we've brought up a couple points that like poke holes at some of the things that you potentially believe in. Like, how do you believe so wholeheartedly? He's like, I just do. And to me, I've had many of these conversations. And at the end of it, I always feel like it's a really awesome and cool philosophical conversation. And my beliefs have shifted in the sense of like, I used to just like not believe like anything is possible. But it never has once made me feel more aligned with a specific religion. I think that's where the disconnect is of like the specific religion. Because I see, for example, Judaism, even though you mentioned it, you define it more as a people rather than a religion, but Catholicism or a different type of Christianity or being Muslim. And like, I see them all as equal. Mm-hmm. So I would have a really hard time saying, I am this one.
Yeah, dude. Do you like theater at all? Like plays or musicals or anything?
Depends.
There's a great show. It's called Life of Pi. I actually had the lead actor on this show.
Okay.
He's amazing. And in the show, he struggles with that. He's like, but I like a little bit of this one, and I like a little bit of this one, I like a little bit of this one. And they're all the leaders of the religions are fighting. They're like, well, choose this one, choose this one. I completely agree with you. And what I would say is, again, from a Jewish perspective, we don't ever say, I just believe. That's not part of what we do. And maybe that's why there's so many Jewish lawyers, because we're always fucking arguing and go. Yeah. But it's never a just take what I'm saying and believe it.
Yeah.
I've never, listen, I have friends who are Muslim, I have friends who are Christian, I have friends who are, and like I've gone to their houses of prayer and we've had discussions. But in Judaism, it's never a just believe. In fact, Judaism is, to my knowledge, it's one of the, at least in terms of the Abrahamic faith, whether it's Islam or Christianity, Judaism, we're the only ones that don't proselytize. Like we don't try and get people to convert. In fact, it's wildly difficult to convert to Judaism.
Yeah.
It's fucking hard. It's a full-time job to convert. And it's funny, like there are jokes where it's like if you tell a rabbi, it's like you wanna convert to Judaism, they're just gonna look at you and say, no, you don't. Like it's whereas often other religions are like, yes, come in, come join us, come join us.
Yeah.
And in listen, there are good and bad people in every walk of life, in every religion, every belief system, and including Judaism. There are bad people in Judaism as well. Typically, though, by and large, we don't believe that you have to believe what we believe. And even within Judaism, within the Jewish people, I've never met two Jewish people who believe the exact same thing, ever. I just haven't. Maybe that's my lack of experience, which I think I have a fair amount within the Jewish people. But the act of questioning, in my opinion, is really important.
Yeah.
And only through that can you get closer to the truth. And I don't know if we'll ever be able to arrive at the truth in this lifetime. But like I think questioning and having these conversations is unbelievably important. Both in religion, politics, life in general. In my opinion, if someone says, you just need to believe this, well, now you've just pushed me further away because there's no way I can just believe.
Yeah.
That's just not, it's not that simple.
Yeah. And I feel like that's maybe where a lot of people struggle because they have been forced to think they need to believe certain things.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's where my rebellious nature comes into play.
Dude, I'm with you, man. I think it's partly the Jewish upbringing. Also, my mom, she was a lawyer. Like, I've always been taught question and critically analyze and debate. Like, it's just what I've been brought up with.
It's important.
Yeah, I completely agree, dude. So, dude, great question. I didn't expect to go down that route at all because all the content that you post is just so you stay with fitness and nutrition. So I was like,
gosh,
okay, we're not going to talk about this.
I want to talk about this too because a bit of imposter syndrome that I have. So two things. Transparently, I don't want to be a famous content creator.
Okay,
that's not what I do it for.
Good.
Right? Like, I do it as a means to help people, to grow my business, and provide for my family. Mm-hmm. So for me, I stay within my means because that's what helps my business and helps me provide for my family. Mm-hmm. It's like people hire us to help us with their fitness and their health. So I just talk about that, right? If I share something even like freaking slightly political, it's just like, oh, that's outside of my lane. I probably won't do that again for a while, right? Because like first off, like people just talk mad shit. Like a post I made today, which is like very slightly political.
What was it about?
Reacting to the Mike Tyson commercial from the Super Bowl.
Oh, okay. I didn't see it.
It's just it's like anti-processed food.
Okay.
Essentially, he's saying that and let me remember what the question was because I want to make sure I bring it back. You're talking about talking outside of my lane. Mike Tyson is in this commercial saying his sister died of obesity. Mm-hmm. I could be getting some pieces wrong, but the whole point is that he was very obese and very unhappy. And then at the end, it just says, processed food kills, eat real food.
Oh, jeez.
And then I just, the political aspect of it is that I reacted and I was just like, 19 million people live in food deserts. Mm-hmm. And gave some stats around how hard like food access is for a lot of people, right? The people that don't understand that didn't grow up in poverty. I did. Mm-hmm. I survived off SNAP benefits when I was a kid. Mm. I remember once my mom accidentally threw away a $5 bill in like a public garbage can. And that was the only money we had. So we had to literally go back and dig in the garbage and get the $5 out. So I know what that struggle is, right? I never grew up thinking I was poor because like immigrant parents, hardworking, they weren't like, oh my God, we're poor. They're just like, this is a situation we're in. We're working. We're getting out of it, right? Mm-hmm. So there was never like any bad feelings around it. But I know what those struggles are. And so it's like, if it's really about eating more real food, then why are SNAP benefits being cut? Mm-hmm. And why don't we invest more in infrastructure for people that live in food deserts? I know it's complicated, right? But that's the whole point of the post that I made. And I was like, because it's just easier to make a Super Bowl commercial.
Yes.
For people that are already wealthy who like even have the luxury of sitting down for 4 hours and watching the Super Bowl.
Correct. Exactly. Right? Yep.
So whatever. I made that post and it's like the comments are just like, like you're a bad person. This is that. I was like, bro, chill. I'm just sharing my perspective on something, right? Yeah. So anyways, I stay within my lane for that reason. But also I think there's a bit of imposter syndrome in the fact that I like talking about a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. We could sit here and talk about food, like from a culinary perspective for hours, but I don't go outside of my lane because I feel like people only value my education, right? And even when I come on podcasts, obviously part of this, I enjoy the conversation. Part of this, I want it to help me professionally as well, right? So I'm like, well, I want to talk about the fitness stuff because then people are going to understand that I'm knowledgeable and they're going to be attracted to our brand and want to come work with us. But part of it is like, man, I don't want to talk about a calorie deficit. Right? I want to talk about this stuff.
Yes.
And like just talk about life and connect with people. So like even the people that I've been interviewing on my podcast, I tell them, I was like, listen, the first half, I'm just going to ask you about your life. And then we'll talk a little bit about fitness because people expect that. But I really enjoy these conversations.
Dude, I love it. And these conversations, I love fitness stuff. I love this. I love health in general.
Of course.
And health can boil down into your physical health. But then we also know that health isn't just physical. It's also your community, which is another aspect of religion that I really like, having a community around you. I'm going to give you thoughts from a business perspective that I think are really important.
Okay.
Number one, I think you're wildly intelligent, and I think people would value your opinion just on any topic. So I'm not telling you to start posting political stuff. Post whatever you want.
Caption, Jordan Syatt made me do it.
I would like to see you do more music stuff. I had no idea. I had no clue. But one of the things that coaches struggle with, because as I said, I have a separate business that's just for teaching coaches how to be better coaches, build their business. It's called the Online Fitness Business Mentorship. We'll put the link in the show notes. But one of the things that coaches struggle with now is they say, well, I don't know how to stand out in this very busy social media world. I don't know how to stand out because everyone is saying so many similar things. How do I stand out? By being yourself, sharing what you believe, and doing it unapologetically. Doesn't mean being rude about it. Doesn't mean being obnoxious about it. But this is what I believe. This is who I am. Let me tell you that. That's how you stand out. You don't stand out by saying calorie deficit in a funny way. You don't stand out by saying the exact same thing in a different way or whatever. You stand out by being you. No one can replicate you. And for every person that you piss off because you have a different belief, you will have someone else who'll be like, thank you for sharing that. Not even necessarily because they believe with you or they believe the same thing as you, but because they appreciate the courage it took for you to say what you believe. And from my experience and my recommendation is if you're passionate about a topic, regardless of whether it's directly related to someone's physical health or not, if you want to talk about it, talk about it. You are blessed with a platform that you've worked incredibly hard to build. You are blessed with an incredible ability to articulate, and you are blessed with these amazing life experiences that you've been able to turn into a remarkable success story. You have a voice that many people don't have. And whether or not they agree with you is more or less irrelevant to now your ability to help people through your voice and what you have to share. Again, if you just want to stay in fitness and not discuss anything, great. But I'll tell you, like, I love this is my conversation. Like this, I had no idea we were going to go that route. And I'm so glad you did. I want to bring you back out so we can talk more about this stuff because realistically, when I found most people when they're going on short form content, social media, they end up leaving the platform feeling worse than when they got on the platform, and their mental health is negatively affected by it. Their stress is up, their anger is up, their blood pressure is up. They feel like the world is going to shit. But after listening to a conversation like this, they're going to be like, they're going to feel much better about where the world is going. They're going to like, okay, these conversations are important. And when our job is improving health across populations, I think a conversation like this is legitimately improving people's health, their faith in the world, their faith in conversation, their faith in dialogue, their faith in religion, and faith in believing whatever you want to believe. I think these conversations, even though it's not like squat technique or nutrition, whatever it is, this is improving health. And I think it's improving our individual health and the health of the world as a whole.
No, I wholeheartedly agree, man. And this is what I enjoyed doing most. You know, while we've been talking, probably like the past 3 hours now, in the back of my head.
Holy shit, is it only 3 hours?
In the back of my head, I'm like, man, this is what I want to do more of.
Yeah.
And actually, one of my goals for 2026 is to really focus more on long form podcasts.
Good.
Because when I leave when I leave Instagram, I leave hungry because my whole thing is just food in my feed. But I totally get where you're coming from about feeling worse. But also, it's not that I often don't think about sharing my opinion about other stuff because I also am the type of person that like, when people are overly opinionated as well, I'm like, how we were talking about earlier about breaking news. It's like, God, people just do this for the clout.
Yes.
You know?
Yep.
And unless I feel really passionate about something, then I will. But I also feel like the short form stuff is not the platform for it.
Agreed.
Right?
Completely.
It's like, God, I need to think about what I'm going to talk about in 60 minutes. And I do that for the health and fitness content. And I want to transition slowly towards doing this more and this being something that I rely on more for personal enjoyment, but also for our business. But the truth of where we are at the moment is that like we get probably 95% of our business from the short form stuff, right? So that transition is just going to take time.
It takes time. And I will listen, my ultimate goal is to have a flip phone where I don't have a smart, and you know, I'm terrible with responding to text. Mitch knows the only person who I reply immediately to is my wife. That's it. No one, like I see a text message from you, from Susan, from whoever, and I'm like, I love you, but I'm not replying right now. And then I end up forgetting and we have 50 texts later.
You know the issue of the flip phone?
Tell me.
You can't have the chess app on there.
Oh, man. Damn. Yeah, I need to get a real board and have it here.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Instagram is still a big driver for me, but really, as I said earlier, the podcast is the biggest one. And it took a long time to get that. But when you have the ability to do what you love, I kept thinking about that your mentor in academia who was just always being like trying people were getting fired or whatever. Have you read the book Anti-Fragile?
I've heard of it. I haven't read it.
Great book. And I'll tell you basically all you need to know. You don't even read it anymore. The idea is that something that's fragile, obviously, you have a vase, falls off the table and it breaks. It's very fragile. Anti-fragile isn't the idea that it's hard to break. It's that every time it breaks, it actually gets stronger and more resilient and more difficult to break in the future. So imagine you have that same vase, hits the floor, breaks, you put it back together, and now it's even stronger. Sort of like a bone sometimes, right? Like your bone can grow back even stronger. I would like to live a life and in terms of a business, have a business that's anti-fragile. And the only way to make it anti-fragile is to step out of your comfort zone, talk about things that people are going to get mad at you for. But it's like that exposure therapy. If you never get anyone mad at you about anything, then you're going to be really worried about that time that they do get mad at you. But the more you do it and the more you stay true to what's right for you and you say it, the more anti-fragile you become and the less that even matters and the less it bothers you and the more you're excited to really talk about it. And I think that you're wildly intelligent, wildly brilliant, incredibly articulate. And I think that you would have a lot of really wonderful things to say, to share with people, to not just improve their physical health, but improve their faith in the world, faith in humanity, and to establish a community that people can fall back on and say, I have a group of people who I can, even if we don't agree, we can be civil about it and we can have a conversation about it. And I think that's what the world needs right now.
Oh, thank you, man. I really appreciate that. It means a ton.
We're going to put a link to your podcast as well in the show notes. So if people want to hold you accountable and make sure, if they want to send you questions, difficult questions that aren't just fitness related, you can answer them as well. I was planning on talking about fatherhood. We're not going to talk about that right now. Next time you're on, we can talk about fatherhood.
That's honestly my favorite topic right now.
I know. I love talking about it.
When I was talking to Ethan, I think it was 2 days ago.
Yeah.
We were talking about this concept of maintenance. And he was like, I think one of the things that people struggle with maintenance is not having a clearly defined goal, right? Like when you're on a fat loss phase, it's easy because you're focusing on fat loss. If you're focusing on building, you're focusing on building, but at maintenance, you're not. And I'm like, well, I think it's important to define that goal, right? He was like, well, what motivates you now? And like, I'm like, being the example I need to be for my kids.
Yes, 100%.
And, if when we were talking about doubt earlier, if there's one thing that I have zero doubt about, is that's the most important thing for me by far, right? And it's cool because it's something you almost experience instantaneously. I mean, we're both dads, but our kids are pretty young.
Yes.
Even when I talk about this whole concept of imposter syndrome, I'm like, well, my kid's only 3. Like, how much do I actually know about fatherhood?
Yeah.
I don't have a teenager, and maybe the things that I'm talking about now just like slap me in the face later because they turn into somebody completely different. but it's the thing I'm most passionate about, man. Even where like jokingly with my business partner, I'm like, we should only coach dads with young kids. Because like, man, it's just like the person I like helping the most and like being with the most.
And you relate to them the most.
100%.
Yeah, dude, I'm with you. It's the greatest thing in the world. I will also say, not only because I love being with my kids, it's also given me the most incredible amount of pleasure to watch my wife become a mother.
Yeah.
And watch her grow into motherhood, and like some of the conversations that we have once the girls are down and sleeping, and just like it's given new meaning to my relationship with my wife.
100%.
And the entire thing is just, it's remarkable. All right, I think we're gonna end it there. Let me ask you this: where can people follow you?
Yeah, so pretty much on all social platforms at Dr. Joey Munoz. Primarily active on Instagram. Trying to pick up the YouTube stuff a little bit more. As far as podcasts, it's the Dr. Joey Munoz Show. Dude, I spent like a week trying to figure out a different name. It's like, I'm just not that creative. And then I saw a couple of people, they just had their name. I'm like, I'm just going to make it my name. But that's the podcast. And then if any of you guys are inclined to learn more about what we do, you could check us out at fitforlifeacademy.health. I don't know how long that'll be the URL, but we will reroute it because we own the domain. So if you search that and it takes you to a different website, guys, it's because we had to rebrand for the trademark infringement. But it's fit4 with the number 4 lifeacademy.health, not .com. But before any of that, I always encourage people to like actually learn about what we do, because I tend to be a very information focused buyer. Like if I'm going to work with somebody, I want to know everything about their philosophy. If you comment the word blueprint, actually, we're going to make one specific for you. If you comment the word "Siet" on any of my posts on social media, I'll send you my free ebook. It just talks about more about our nutrition and training philosophies to see if it aligns.
Thank you for doing that. I appreciate that, man. So comment the word "Siet" on any of his Instagram posts. And again, all the links will be in the show notes.
Sweet.
I want to bring you back out here so we can have more fun, more interesting discussions. Dude, thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please make sure you go follow Joey across platforms. Again, everything is in the show notes. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a 5-star review on iTunes, Spotify. Give it a thumbs up on YouTube, wherever you're watching. All these reviews help a lot getting the word out and improving the reach of the show. So thank you to everyone who's left a review thus far. If you haven't, please go do that. Have a wonderful week. Talk to you soon.